Welcome to the Visual Cast. I'm your host, Alon, aka Ren. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we interview some of the most unique, interesting, high-level, and exciting artists from all over the world. Entering into Season 2, we will be starting a monthly live stream to our paid subscribers. To join in on the live stream with Q&As, polls, and some surprises, click on the join button below. Your subscription will massively support our channel and bring us further to creating a community of like-minded individuals who love, create, and immerse themselves with the visual arts and the visual world. For those unable to join financially, don't worry. The episode, like all of our episodes, will be available on Thursdays for everyone to watch. And if you want to support us, like and subscribe and share with anybody you think will enjoy the podcast. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Now, without further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Podcast. I'm joined today by a very special guest, somebody who is pretty important to our community and is a full-time high-end developer, also a developer of one of our favorite softwares here on the podcast, Synesthesia. Shout out Synesthesia. And just a really awesome visual artist that I'm super excited to be talking to today. Welcome, Kyle Grover. Oofed.
Thank you. That's a great introduction. Glad to
Best
be
I
on.
could do. I was telling Kyle before that I was telling you before. I don't know why I said you in the third person, but I was telling you before that I could not find any information of you online, so I'm coming in blind, which I kind of like. Makes the conversation more interesting. So yeah, all I know about you is that you're an awesome artist and developer of Synesthesia, and we're gonna find out all the rest about you now. We're gonna start off with kind of taking a little bit of a dive into your Instagram and kind of looking at it as we're going through. And I just kind of wanted to start off the conversation here by, kind of looking a little bit at your work and kind of asking you like a general question about kind of like your coding and like the way that you look at art as lines of code, especially when it comes to Synesthesia, which is like this kind of like a bridge between the two things, where it's like, yeah, it's a VJ software, yeah, it's like a line, what is it called, not an IED, that's something totally different.
It's got an IDE in it now.
IDE.
Yeah.
And like, what's your approach? Like, have you always kind of approached visuals as like this code-based generative thing, or do you kind of look at it in this too multifaceted way?
Yeah, I've thought about it through code for a long time. I haven't always thought of myself as a code artist, but it's something that's definitely overtaken the way that I view things, to where now I'll go on a nature walk and I'm trying to brainstorm like what's the SDF of that plant? Like, what's the algorithm going on there?
Nice.
It does kind of infuse your brain, but I come at it from a few different backgrounds. So I would say
I love this one.
The code's kind of the latest iteration.
That's awesome. I also do that. I go on nature hikes. Whenever I look at water in nature, I'm like, oh, look at that noise pattern. Look at that, wave form. And it's like, and you look for the glitches. You're like, where is it? Where's the LOD lower? Where is the glitch happening?
How did they get this resolution? It doesn't make sense. There's not even a GPU. Yeah.
So, well, as far as we know.
Yeah.
As far as
they might have some different tech. Yeah.
Totally. And we're kind of like a GPU in some way. Our brains, somewhat, or our consciousness. We're getting heavy at the beginning, But
Yeah, you save that for the end, don't you?
yeah, for sure. Um, so
Yeah,
interesting.
there's one
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a demonstration of exactly what we were saying. So that's
You're
I was
outside.
actually just like in the park, and then I looked up and I was like, oh, can I do those leaps? You know,
I love it. I
those
mean,
ones right there. I think I
what's a
tried to zoom on
better
them.
what's a better place? What's a better inspiration than nature? You know, especially when it comes to computer graphics. You know, we're joking, but
Yeah.
you know, generative visual arts is all based around, you know, natural occurring algorithms and you know, generative math patterns. So it's like you got to be inspired by nature because that's kind of where it all in not all but in a vast way is originating from. Um, yeah, I love this one too. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's
Thanks.
like
Yeah, that
kind
one's
of,
just code.
are you
Most of these are
you know,
just code.
for sure, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
all just code, right? But is it like, do you I guess a more broader question is, when you go and sit down to make visuals, are you thinking of like what lines you're gonna write, or is it a little bit more exploratory where you're kind of have an idea of like what you're gonna write, and then the visuals kind of appear as you're doing it?
I I have a bit of both occur at different times. Like this one we're looking at right now was based off of a prompt where it
Nice.
was for a prompt series. So I'm coming in with an idea and I'm trying to think, how can I translate this into my code art world? But
Mm,
then there are other times that I'm just sitting down and I'm just kind of throwing lines of code down and seeing what happens.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah,
A
I mean,
lot of,
your
and
work
a lot of
speaks
the time I'll try I'll come in with an idea and then we'll start to get going and then it goes a totally different direction. We have some little
for
error that
sure.
ends up being really cool. Like this whole feedback effect on this guy right here was that was a total glitch, but I was just like, ooh, let's snapshot, cool
Hell
moment,
yeah.
saving this.
Hell yeah. Happy accidents, as it were. Oh,
Hmm.
this isn't just some little guy, bro. This is the guy. This is
Yeah,
our
yeah,
guy. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? This is our dude.
I call this guy Deuterino. I've
Deuterino.
got big plans for Deuterino. I think I've got even what is it right here? Got some sticker sheet
Oh,
of him that
nice.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
hell yeah.
put up somewhere soon.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. That's like a real are you from the 90s question, you know?
Yeah.
Or did you internet in the 90s? I love it. It's like what was it? IRC, not IRC. RCQ. Was it RCQ? Oh shit, I'm totally forgetting everything
Oh,
today.
there's so many. That's the one screen there was the AOL,
AOL,
AIM,
yeah. IM.
but I
AIM.
was on them all.
What was the other one that was like was it IRC RCQ? I
IRC
can't remember.
IRC was I think like the
RCQ.
proto.
Yeah, that was like the original like rooms was the IRC, but I think
Hmm.
ICQ is also like a chat of some sort. Yeah, it was like an instant
That
messaging
feels right.
ICQ. I feel like you know, in Israel we had a little bit of different stuff. Like AOL was like came a little bit late to like my, you know, internet life, but that was like one of those ones where it was like, okay, this is like akin to like WhatsApp today, where it's like, okay, kind of everybody's kind of getting on board with, you know, AIM, and the more like, you know, professional world is on AIM. Whereas like I remember like RCQ or whatever, those like chat rooms were a lot more like small rooms, you know, and AIM was like direct, more or less, you know. It's like if you get the guy's username or the girl's username, I guess, hopefully, whatever, then you can kind of chat with them, you know. It was kind of like a little bit of an interesting thing there. Look at this. Is this a MIDI you made?
Yeah, it's a little custom.
Hell yeah.
Got that guy right. See
So
if we can get him
cute.
on
Oh,
screen.
look at him. Yeah,
Yeah,
hell yeah. I
I
love
got
it.
one broken button. It's that one.
Oh no. Hell yeah. I love that. Oh, and you digitized it too. Hell yeah. It's like a
Yeah,
previs
it's
of
just
the viz of the previs of the viz.
yeah, just kind of made them to line up with how my camera was laid out.
Hell yeah. I
I
love
have that scene saved, but it's like, when are you ever going to use it unless you have my
it. Yeah.
controller with that
For
exact
sure.
overhead camera?
For
But
sure. It's so funny. So yeah, I mean, we've had a few synesthesia people on. We've had the man of synesthesia himself, Theron Pry, on. Check out that episode; it's a great one. We've had Rhino on. Shout out Tyler, aka the OSC champ. We've had
Oh yeah.
Cybernautics on. I know he doesn't work directly for synesthesia, but he's definitely a
Oh,
synesthesia
but he's
boy.
huge. He's the
He's
man.
huge. He's the biggest. He's massive. He is
He might.
massive.
He might. I have the analytics. He might be the biggest of them all. He's killing it.
He's definitely the biggest of them all, for sure. Without the analytics, I could just tell you right away. So we're big synesthesia fans here, and I definitely want to kind of jump into your like origin story with synesthesia, but I also don't want to like put you in that box of synesthesia. So let's start kind of with Kyle as you're California born or raised, I guess. You went to Santa
Both. Yeah.
Cruz University, and you found your way into Portland. So I'll leave it to you. Like, tell us a little bit about growing up in California, maybe why you went to Santa Cruz, what did you study, why did you study this, and just give us a little bit of a overview of your origins.
Well, let's see. Why did I go to Santa Cruz? I think we can start with I grew up in a pretty small, boring town. So by the time I was ready to go to college, I was very ready to get out and do something. So I did. I wanted to stay somewhere in California. I always loved it, but wanted to get some distance, and I wanted to go, meet some unusual people, which I lucked into in Santa Cruz. I studied anthropology, so
Wow.
totally
So
not
cool.
probably not the one you would have guessed.
No.
Hasn't been so immediate or directly applicable to my career, but I don't really regret the experience. I met so many interesting people that really did end up kind of forming my path in life.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's awesome.
so had great times there. I was in Santa Cruz for I think maybe a decade, and then was just really ready to make a move. I felt like I'd been in one place for too long.
Yeah.
So Portland felt like a natural progression. I lived in Eugene for a few years before
Oh,
Portland,
cool.
but
I heard Eugene. I heard good things about Eugene.
it was a fun place. I lived there kind of peak COVID, so I got
Gotcha.
I wouldn't judge it by my impression of it.
Interesting. So, okay, wow, that's such an interesting thing to study. I guess a question would be like, why anthropology, and then also like, you're kind of a high level web developer. Where did that come into it? Like, how did you go from
Yeah.
like were you always kind of nerdy inclined? Were you always a little bit visual inclined, or is that something that kind of came completely after?
I think that I was, when I trace it backwards, I wouldn't have thought of myself that way. But when, I've heard a quote once of like, the dots, I'm gonna butcher it, but the dots all like connect in retrospect, but in the moment as you're living them, they feel
Oh
like
yeah.
just random erratic dots. And that I
Yes.
definitely feel that's the case with me. I look back on I some of my first experience with coding, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, is getting into video games at a young age and wanting to
For
do something video
sure.
game related.
For
And so
sure.
I found these video games that you could, like, looking back at it, it was so cool. You could download the source code and then make your edits to it and run your own server of it and have
Yeah, wow.
like a small online multiplayer game. And so with some friends, I got into that, and it was all built in uh, at the what was it, Macromedia at the time, Macromedia
Wow,
Shockwaves.
like Flash almost, or like kind
Yeah,
of
at the same
adjacent to
time,
Flash.
yeah, Macromedia also made Flash. That was their other
Right.
product at the time, and
Right,
they
right,
later
right,
got
right.
rolled into whatever it was, something bad.
Macromedia Shockwave. It sounds so familiar.
It was sorry, the program was Director, and then the
Director.
Shockwaves were the format that it put out. So you'd
Gotcha,
you'd
gotcha.
run into those
So would
online
this be like
sometimes.
would it be like Newground Games kind of thing would be running in this?
Yeah, some of
Pretty
those.
much.
It might have
Like any of these
even,
Flash-based games
yeah.
almost were kind of using this back end of some sort.
Yeah, this one had its own, since it was an online game, it was a whole separate thing. But yeah, it was that
Mm-hmm.
kind of era of the type of thing you would use to make a Newgrounds game. And
Interesting.
so got, into that, not even realizing that that's like coding, really.
Coding. Yeah. Interesting.
And then, as somewhere in the process of that, I remember I made some like interactive generative art thing where you could like click around, it would change the color of the background, it would draw random beziers from like one point to where the mouse was.
That's cool.
And like I had so much fun with that. And then I didn't touch anything related to that for like 15 years of my life because I just didn't
Wow.
think anything of that. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh, duh. Like,
Right. So when you went to school, was there like some fascination with anthropology, or was it just more of like this is kind of did you fall into it kind of thing, or was there a direction there?
I think there were a few things. It's definitely, fascination with humans and just
Right.
humanity and everything that's going on there. And then
Totally.
I think there's some level of like rebelling against
Huh.
myself or something. I don't know how to
Hmm.
call it, where it's like I felt like I should do computer science. And then I saw this path forward of myself where I was like, where I
Like
did that
code.
and then just became this person that in my vision, I didn't like who I thought I was going to be.
Interesting. Wow, so interesting.
And then, so yeah, just went this other path. And then, by the time I got to the end of my bachelor's degree, I was already pretty sure that I was like, this isn't, this isn't the thing, but we're just going to push through. We're going to get a degree out of it. And then, figure out the real path afterwards.
Wow. Yeah, that's such an interesting thing. I think a lot of, I always found like college to be like too young. Like you're too young to go to college at 18.
Yeah.
One thing good about it, there's not a lot of things that are good about Israel, but one thing good about Israel is that, you do have this kind of bridge of you finish high school at
It's like a
18.
break year, right?
You have,
Or,
well, it depends if you go to the military or if you do like community service. Like you kind of have to do one. Males are meant to go to the military service, so it's like kind of required, but nowadays obviously it's a lot easier to get out of it. Let's not go too down deep this rabbit hole, but the point being that there's a little bit of a break in between. So
Mhm.
I had like 3 years to decide. And then also after my military service, I was like, I got to get a break out of reality. So I went traveling for a year as well. So when I like started thinking fully, like I definitely thought about going to school throughout that whole period of like, what do I want to do? What do I want to, study or whatever. But when I really sat down to think about it, I was so sure of what I wanted to do that I had a lot more like quote unquote life experience of like what I wanted to do with myself. It's funny because, like you said, the dots are always connected in retrospect. Like now, I don't do what I studied. I studied film. I don't really do film now, but it was akin or at least connected to like the art world. But yeah, I think like at 18, it's hard to really understand what it is that you want to do, and then it's like, okay, you can undeclare for a year or two, right? But then it's like you're kind of tasting things, but you're not really getting like full taste of anything, and it's yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, the fact that you finish your degree, I think, is a real testament to you and your your personality of like, okay, I might as well just finish this thing, even though the value of it is obfuscated in some way. Um, so yeah, I think that's really cool. Was there was there like a point that you were shifting back to coding? Like, did you like kind of like, I don't know, like wake up one day and be like, okay, this is not for me. I'm gonna go back to my original thing that I wanted to do, or was it like gradual in this sense?
There's like a good maybe 5 years after graduating before that point comes around, I think.
Gotcha.
Because yeah, after graduating, I was just living life, basically, is how I'd put it.
Nice. Fuck yeah.
Um, just kind of trying all kind. I had so many weird, odd jobs for a long period of time, like just really the oddest ones.
Can you
like,
give us a few
but
funny ones? Yeah.
um, let's see. I did like how would you call it? validating petition signatures. This is a job I didn't even know
Wow.
existed. Where you go, there's somebody outside the grocery store. They're like, "Hey, can you sign this real quick?" You
Signature.
do your worst signature that you could possibly do so that they can't read it, and then and then they come back and they hand it in. They get paid like 20 cents, a dollar, depending on the petition. And they
Right.
hand that into a company. They hand that over to me. I
Uh-huh.
sit there and I have to read what the address was
No
and
way.
check it against a
It's
database of
actually
registered
checked.
voters.
It's legit
Yeah,
like checked.
you
Wow.
have to spot check up to a certain amount to ensure that at least something like 80% of the
Gotcha.
petition signatures
It's
are
legit.
valid. Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
crazy.
that's a bizarre one. Didn't know that existed.
You had a cool, but you had access to this database of people's addresses and names and signatures.
Yeah.
That's wild. No, that's pretty crazy.
It was unbelievably janky the way this business ran. I'm
Oh
not going
my
to name any
god.
names.
Was it a government business or it's like a totally like
It's all
private?
subcontractors of
Wow.
contractors.
I'm not surprised
And then
actually. It's just kind of crazy though to like be
at the
confirmed
end
with
of the
all
day,
these
you
things, you
got
know?
like a 20-year-old dude with a stack of like 50 pages of validated petitions that I'm taking home as like
Oh my
firewood because they
god.
don't want to pay to have it disposed of. Um, what else?
That's funny.
I transcribed a book for a blind author. That was kind of a peak odd job. So just hang
Sorry.
dog at the door.
I think kid, but well, it's
Oh,
all
gotcha.
good. So I said you were a dog walker for a blind guy?
No, I was a
Sorry.
transcriber for a
A
blind author.
transcriber for a
So he would
blind author.
yeah, so he'd
Wow.
sit there and he would just, you know,
Re-
spout out, and I would type as fast as I
that's
could
cool.
and read back
That's really
sections when
cool.
he wanted to rehear them. Yeah. So
Wow. Was it like a
it's been like a
biography or
good
was
chunk
he
of time.
writing?
Just, it's like semi autobiographical. It's like stories based around his life growing up in
Wow.
like East LA. It was a very
Wow.
old Mexican dude, so he had a quite
So
an
cool.
interesting story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of it was about selling weed and like on the hate in like the 70s as a blind. So
Hate Ashbury stories. That sounds awesome.
yeah, quite an experience. So it was a weird period of my life, but I wouldn't trade it back. It was
For
I
sure.
had a lot of a lot of my stories come from then, right?
So, what was your catalyst? We like that word here. What was your catalyst to start going into coding after all these odd jobs and, finding yourself in Santa Cruz or whatever? Like, what made the real shift to that?
You know, the path in I would say it was web development. I had
Hmm.
been working odd jobs, like I said, and then, a bit in the cannabis industry in
Hmm.
California. And that, first of all, started to change pretty rapidly with legalization, just kind of modified how everything was done,
For sure.
especially in the period where it was just starting to be implemented kind of poorly.
For
It
sure.
seems like it's in a much better place now, and like I'm glad that industry has been reformed because I mean people have seen the documentaries, but yeah, needed felt that wasn't the direction, just
Hmm.
wasn't going to be what I wanted, and then in my search for odd jobs, I found something that I think was even listed as data entry, and I thought, oh, I kind of have the petition signing thing.
Right.
But then as I got into it, it was like an SEO company. It was a pretty small
Oh.
company. And so there was, plenty of path to like, oh, we have this, can you like pick up CSS? Do you know HTML? And I was like, sure. I had a Neopets shop once upon a time. I had a MySpace page, you know, and just
Oh
slowly
man,
kind
that's a
of,
callback. That's great. The
yeah,
Neopets.
slowly worked my way
Wow.
in there. That the Neopets HTML guide is still online, by the way. So yeah, just worked my way in there slowly, started making, you know, just the front end of web pages, and then more so getting into working on the admin panel of
Hmm.
WordPress, and then you start writing functions.php, and then you're writing plugins and themes,
Right. Right.
and slowly became a full-fledged web developer, I would say.
Interesting. So it kind of just out of necessity almost, or like, out of whatever, out of a job requirement. But you must be
Yeah, the
like
need for a pivot a little bit was,
need for
there
pivot.
was something in my mind where I was like, something computery, this seems good. I've always, had that as my kind of in my back pocket of something I felt like I could do.
Hmm. Hmm. So you're a massive nerd, and you didn't discover how big of a nerd you were until you were older.
That's kind of the
The nerd
gist of it. And I think
discovery.
there's a lot of people like that.
For sure. For
A lot of
sure.
people that might
You
still
know,
not know.
for sure. Still stuck in the nerd closet, for sure.
Yeah.
Get out of the nerd closet, guys. You could do it.
You're
It's
not
cool.
cool.
Nerds are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Interesting. And was it like a very natural kind of, because I mean, going from HTML editing for some SEO company to, being a C++ developer slash, what is it called? SL. Oh my God, I'm so slow today. But going from HTML to where you are now, that was a big trajectory. Was there a lot of like long nights studying? Are you kind of inclined? Are you a fast learner? Are you like almost like a natural nerd? I don't know. Like what is
I,
how do you
I
pick all that
definitely have
up
got
kind of thing?
I've got the nerd tendencies for sure. I think one
Okay.
thing I do excel at is picking up something kind of in a self-driven way, or something
Mm.
that's like, poorly documented. I think that's somewhere that I tend to come in and do well.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, it was a slog at times. There was, some periods of time of, feeling like, okay, I'm gonna just have to, this isn't gonna be a fun weekend. I'm gonna be just grinding. I'm gonna be learning some stuff. Took a
Mm.
few of those.
Mm. Yeah, I've had those weekends. I had the weekend this weekend and the weekend before and the weekend before. Um,
Yeah.
Interesting. So okay, so cool. And was it kind of like not to be like too not like to pry or anything, but was it like did you fall back in love with it in a way? Was it kind of like, you're doing all these odd jobs and then you found this company and you're starting to get back deeper into code? Was it kind of like, oh, this is my calling? Or was it like almost yeah, was the passion about it kind of there already, or did you have to kind of teach yourself it?
I think I had to kind of drive myself into the web development stuff. And then after a while, I finally found myself like, I felt like, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm here. I'm past some of the imposter syndrome or whatever.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then kind of only at that point was I started to realize that like, oh, maybe this isn't exactly the right subfield. There's web development is kind of, you hear a lot of people talking about it as a road into coding, and then something
Right.
to for a lot of people to break out of.
For sure, for sure.
Um,
I mean,
so
nowadays it's like kind of dead almost, close to being dead at least. You know. I think
development,
yeah, yeah,
there's
like just with vibe coding and AI and all that. It's like, all the
yeah,
Wix and what is the other one, the big one? Oh man. I'm so out of it
what
today.
Squarespace, Shopify, yeah.
Squarespace. Yeah, yeah, all these things. Um, I guess like there's still like a nice amount of demand for like a high-end web dev that can like take your vibe code and make sure it's good, or
Yeah,
or like
it's
some sort
kind
of
of,
systems.
I don't feel like it's replaced web developers, but I do uh, very much worry that it's like yanking up that ladder of like
Right.
these small local businesses that have like a
Totally.
$500 to $1,500 budget that aren't
Yeah.
gonna pay like a fully experienced developer, but that can, give somebody their chance to get, a little something they can list on their
Yep.
resume, a little bit of
Totally.
experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
That's
they'll
I worry
always,
about that going away first.
for sure, for sure. I guess they'll always be like that, with technology advancing, there's always that, you said it so well, that ladder, being pulled out is like, you really, like, if you want to be a web developer, you really want to have to be a web developer these days, like, or like even as a content creator, right? Like, I don't think we're there yet, but I imagine in like a year or two or three, like if you want to go and create content, you really have to want to create content because everybody can do that. You know, if you want to do code, you really want, you know, there's not like that, like, oh, I'm going to
Mhm.
dabble with some Python or I'm going to dabble with some GLSL because, you know, you just prompt it, you just vibe it. And it's like, it's just getting better and better. And, you know, I think, but it could also be the offset of that, of like, because the bar of entry is so, because the ladder is so lowered, that maybe it's easier to climb up that ladder to get to a point where you can pull the ladder up. You know, you can get to a point where it's like, okay, now I've been vibe coding so long, I'm so good at it, now I'm going to go and learn computer science and, you know, learn how this works, etc. Maybe, I don't
Yeah,
know, it
there's
could be
the flip
the
side is it's never been easier to code. It's never been easier to learn to code. The
right,
coding languages are better than they've ever been.
right,
Computers are faster than they've ever been and cheaper. And you now have this 24/7 expert on every language that you can
right,
just paste every error message you run into and it'll
yeah,
explain it.
yeah. Explain it. Who cares about
uh,
explaining it? Just fix it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
just
know,
fix the
I'm
problem.
joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, and then
um,
as well, all those platforms that you name, those are all built by web developers.
right.
So there's the layers of work go down. It's um, hopefully we're still in a space where people can break in. But yeah, it does feel like we're taking out the wrong parts, right? Like everyone feels
Definitely.
like we want so much stuff to be automated, but why are you automating entry level work and art
Right.
and
Yeah.
everything that we liked to do?
Totally. 100%. It's always like that, right? It's always like the powers to be or don't care about the whatever it is to care about. They just care about the bottom line and how to make profit. I just hope that like I hope like exactly like you saying like that the level of people going into entry level jobs will not go away because those entry level jobs have gone away. Or maybe like a better way to phrase that would be like I hope that the passion for exploring entry level jobs doesn't go away, and that it actually like multiplies because it's so easy to get into into an entry level job, right? Or to try an entry level code or art or whatever it is. And that creates more passion and doesn't turn off the passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like to
there's
believe
always
that it
hobby
does.
projects.
Yeah, and if you kind of look at history, like think about like maybe like it's not a great example, but maybe like you know back in the Renaissance, right? Like paint was expensive. So if you want to be a painter, you need to get sponsored or you need to go to like a fancy school. And then all of a sudden, like technology comes, industrial revolution, etc. Those things become cheaper, more accessible. Then anybody can paint, right? Or anybody can draw or some, you know, maybe not a perfect example. As an anthropological study person, you probably have a different experience about that. But you know, like
Yeah, I'm agreeing.
okay, cool,
I'm
cool.
not gonna
But
pull the cultural anthro rank on.
well, actually, in 19, you know, um, so yeah, I just feel like I feel like those opportunities for technological development can go either or ways, right? And it's like people always kind of have this underlying need or maybe it's evolutionary of like you know following things that make you feel good like passions, right? Like hobbies, like you said, like, and that will never go away. The question is, are those things going to shift to like some bullshit, you know, dystopian sci-fi, or is it going to be like now everybody not only can code but everybody loves code and is interested by it or art, etc. So I don't know, time will tell, I guess. um Okay, so shifting a little bit back into your history and kind of where you are, you're a musician as well. Is that right? Did I get that right?
A little bit. I
Okay.
I
Well, can
spent more time doing music some years back. It's it hasn't been like an active calling for a while, but I feel comfortable in a DAW.
nice. Well, I mean, it kind of definitely brings us into you know the next topic of visuals, but maybe yeah, tell us a little bit about that kind of musical exploration, and you know, did it tie into your exploration of visuals as well?
Yeah, yeah, I could maybe kind of tie us all the way up to the synesthesia point, maybe of
Hell yeah.
you know, one huge part of Santa Cruz that I haven't given credit to yet is the Santa Cruz Forest Renegades that I went to in my college
Okay.
years and after. That was extremely
Hell yeah.
formative, where I saw so many good artists play on these super underground events, just thrown together in a forest. So
Fuck
that's
yeah.
definitely, something that motivated me and got me really interested in the music scenes, especially electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I had kind of a variety of interests surrounding that
Mm.
took various forms before coalescing into just into VJing.
Mm.
But poi spinning was
Oh,
a huge
cool.
part of the background.
Hell yeah.
Um, and then yeah, the music as well. I would do some remix. I've got an artist moniker out there. You guys have to find it on your own with some remixes out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and got to hear those played out a couple times. That was fun, but never felt you, you were saying earlier about how you have to really feel driven to do
Mm.
these various things. I think DJing is maybe one of the
Oh
most
yeah.
extreme cases where you have to want it so badly to go through what you have to, being a small time producer musician and coming up is so difficult.
For
um
sure.
and that, it just, I didn't feel that was for me. But yeah, I think it was through poi spinning that I started to get interested a bit in some visual stuff, where I wanted to figure out kind of like feedback systems and how to
Mm.
how to do a live video feed of poi
Mm-hmm.
spinning and then turn that into
Oh,
visuals. Um,
interesting.
so I think I was first using Isadora is
Oh yeah.
what it's
Wow. That's
called.
old school.
Old,
It's a
yeah,
media
old
server.
school. Yeah, and got some kind of I think it was node based, if I'm remembering right. Was able to pull some stuff
I
together
don't know.
there.
Actually, I don't
Haven't
know.
yeah,
I
haven't
know that
pulled that one up
it's.
in a long time.
I know that it's a media server. I didn't. I never thought that it was node based. I guess it is. I think it's still existing. Isadora. Actually, I'm pretty sure that it just got bought, or maybe it's a different one I'm thinking about. But
Ooh,
there was a media server that like kind of went out of, kind of been out of business for a little bit, um, and then some like German guys just bought it to kind of like revitalize it. I don't know if it's actually Sadora. It might be a different one of those media servers. There's so many like sidebar media servers that like nobody really
yeah.
knows about that kind of have a market share just because media servers are expensive. If you invest a few $100,000 in them, you're probably not going to switch to a different one. Interesting. So you're playing with this and then kind of like were you getting good results? Were you like happy with what you were seeing?
I liked some of it, but it wasn't quite the right format that I was getting the
Mm.
most out of. And then I think
Mm-hmm.
from there, I kind of slowly shifted into, I was doing a bit of P5.js,
Oh wow.
which is like
Cool.
the JavaScript processing.
Right.
And then yeah, I started to explore some like audio reactive stuff in that, and was starting to get some cool stuff, but you hit these really fast limits because you're running everything in JavaScript on the CPU.
Right. Right.
So
Right. 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 Right.
you hit these hard walls. And I would say that pretty much leads me all the way up to starting to search and find GLSL, which
So
is,
your introduction to GSL was prior to synesthesia, or was it something that kind of came together?
I've never been able to figure out the exact first moment that I found synesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
moment that I remember was I was working at a music studio in Santa Cruz, and I got I had at some point signed up to their mailing list to find out when it would come out for Windows.
Okay.
So I didn't have a Mac at the time, and they started out as just purely Mac.
Right. 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 Right.
And and so I got that announcement the day it came out, and I was sitting at work, and I think I had already been starting to like get into shader toy a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't feeling that motivated, and I had this moment of like, I'm either gonna teach myself shader toy so that it's worth it for me, buy synesthesia right now, or I'm just gonna buy synesthesia as a way to light the fire under my own ass to learn. And that's the path that I went. So really, the majority of my GLSL learning was through synesthesia.
Hmm. That's so cool. So, okay, so now just kind of walk us through your introduce synesthesia, you find it, you're playing with it, you're introducing yourself to GLSL. What is that kind of trajectory to where you are now that you're working for them?
Yeah, so I would say this kind of ties back to what I said earlier about how I'm good at learning things before they're documented that well. And I would say that's kind of
Right.
where things were at when I started to get into synesthesia. So, I would run into some things like the audio uniforms maybe weren't explained very well.
Hmm.
And so I would go to the Facebook group, or I forget if there's a Discord right off the bat,
Hmm.
but try to interact with people, get some knowledge from people. Um, Started building some tools for myself to be able to visualize what was happening inside of synesthesia, and sharing those with other people there. And I think Theron would know better, but I think that's kind of the one of the first moments where they're like, "Hey, who's this guy that's making this tool that we probably should have had internally for ourselves?" Um, so we started getting in some conversations, I'm sure, at least by that point. And then I just slowly, I think, worked my way into being the bit of a de facto power user in their online groups. Um, and then, was making more and more scenes.
Hmm.
Then I think there came a point where I was posting scenes online, and I got a few people asking me if they'd be able to like download them or buy them anywhere. And
Hmm.
this was before the synesthesia marketplace existed. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, great, this is perfect place to use my years of e-commerce SEO.
Hmm.
So I just really quickly spun up a web store for shaders or for synesthesia scenes. And I think that might have been the first one that was available. So, started to get some interest there, made some sales through there. Not so long after that, I think, is when Theron contacted me to let me know that they were halfway through their process of building the
Store.
marketplace for
Hmm.
synesthesia. And
Hmm.
so they're like, oh, naturally, like you're already doing it. What can you tell us about the market for this? And like, bouncing ideas for the contract and everything off of me. And so then I think I became the first, maybe the second artist on the marketplace.
Wow.
Um, I'm trying to think when I think I sold them a built-in scene before that,
Like for the
even.
actual, like the scenes that come with the system, that come with the
Yeah, one of
project
the
program.
built-ins. I think it
Hmm.
might even to this day just be under just my first name,
Hmm. Nice. That's so cool.
because
And
I didn't
okay,
even have
so
the UFT at the time, the pseudonym.
I mean the Theron is so good with outreach, and that whole the whole community based focus is so awesome, and also like so important for these type of softwares. I mean, Touch Designer and Blender and all the programs, their power is in their community, and you can kind of see
Absolutely.
the softwares or programs that don't foster a healthy community, program or focus, they tend to die off, or they tend to lose massive amounts of the market, because really at the end of the day, yeah, like how good your thing looks and the output is all important, and blah 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 blah, but it's really like who's using it, how are they moving it forward, how are they interacting with each other, how is okay, yeah, if you're like Unreal Engine with like 10 cent money, and you don't you have like thousands of developers, maybe you don't need a community to like push the development forward. I mean, you could probably argue that like having a
Yeah.
community focuses your direction, but like if you're just if you're touch designer, you're 10 developers, if you're synesthesia, you're just a handful of people, having the community be able to like test and bug and realize what it is that they want is so powerful. I think like shout out to Theron for really fostering that. And also like, what's the right word, but like, picking and bringing close to him the people that are fucking brilliant like yourself to move the company forward in a really positive way. So like what was the shift from, hey, I love your shit, it's so cool, we want to bring it into the store, to like, hey, you're a genius, can you work for us? Like
I think it was a slow shift over time of just, starting with like just a little curious questions of like, so what is your day job? Are you attached to it? And at the time, I think I was doing, I think I had two remote part-time kind of web gigs at the time. And so I was not super married to either one and was open to a shift. And I came on, I think, part-time for a while. And at first I was mostly focusing on, you know, helping clear down support, getting, just basic stuff done. And then as well, picking up a lot of that, the community interaction stuff, which has been, very valuable. And that's, yeah, you're right, but Theron sets a tone on that of, helping people out, making them have a good experience. And that's like really the majority of the marketing strategy at Synesthesia. We're not really paying for ads. We're just like spending the time trying to give people good experiences. And then those people, they have such a good, if you give somebody a good enough experience, they're going to go and they're going to tell people. And that's so much more valuable than being your name at the start of a Google result for some other thing.
So I guess as a sidebar to this, as a community leader or as a community, moderator, what do you think the most important aspects of a community for software is?
I mean, it's of the software or of the business approach.
I guess like the approach to like fostering a community and like, picking and choosing what to listen to, etc. Kind of like, what has been your experience with this kind of idea of fostering community and building it up and empowering it?
Yeah, I mean, I've find you really want to listen to almost everything. Like people, I find a lot of people that are like, "Oh, sorry to bother you," but like when somebody has direct feedback, that's like such an incredibly useful, valuable thing. So yeah, I mean, just listening to everything people have to say, and like, rather than trying to imagine the problems that people are running into, just like if you're open, that's maybe the most important thing is making people understand that you are open and want to hear it. And making the avenues available, making the group chat, the Discord, and making that a place where people actually get responses. Just
right.
Listening is the key.
For sure. Listening and accepting, I guess, everybody's input. Is it challenging?
Yeah, there's a few people that are, there's so little that is worth ignoring. There's like, every once in a while you're going to get somebody that's just clearly upset, didn't read, bought the thing before they knew what it was, and they're just in a rage mode. And it's really maybe even not about you or the software. It's about them just getting that out of their system. But, the majority, maybe it's just because we've managed to set up such a good community of people, but we get just such good feedback from people. It's always valuable to hear.
Nice. That's awesome. It's so, that's refreshing, I mean, I kind of knew, I know that the synesthesia community is very good, but from the community leader himself or one of them, it's good to hear that it's a nice experience. I mean, I've been on the sending side of that frustrated consumer
Yeah.
many times. And yeah, I mean, I have, I don't know, how much you know about my experience with some of the softwares that are in the community, but some of them don't like me very much, I think, because of that exact reason.
Oh,
And I'll refrain from naming. But yeah, either way, yeah, I think it's like, it's also like a learning experience for myself, just kind of like learning how to, separate the developer from the business maybe, or like separate the way that a business has to operate with their developers. Like if you have X amount of developers and then you have X amount of requests, you can't just do all those requests. There's like a hierarchy of like how many people, what is the importance. I get that. It's frustrating as like a lowly person. I'm not like a high end client, so I get it. But it still was frustrating many, many, many times. Yeah, I feel like there should be like some sort of system of like, not necessarily like how big your client is that you're working for, but maybe like how much have you given to the community? Like how like high are you on the community level? And like if you're higher on that community level, like you've answered questions or commented or given out free things on the forums, whatever it is, then if you have a need or a desire for something, it's higher up on the list versus like most companies, just kind of like put you higher up on the list if you're working for Katy Perry or whatever the fuck, like, or if you're like a Fortune 500 company that bought a shit ton of servers, which I get both of those, but there's got to be like a window for like, people that have given to the community that also should get some sort of, status of some sort. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. Just,
no, yeah, and I think, that's something that I think definitely does happen for us, and it might even be conscious or subconscious, like, because, like, let's see, one of the very next item on my like the hit list for our next release is something that was just a DM from Cyber, where it's like he messages me, I'm just gonna go straight into my to-do list, and
nice.
that's
Who is that?
from
Alex.
Cybernautics.
Yeah, from Alex. Yeah, nice. Yeah, but he's
Gonna
like
fix
he's the
color picker.
biggest. He's so big, dude. He's so big that like, once you get that big, you just can't say no to that size, It's just
Well, and then
the girth. um,
it's a large being, yeah.
large
No,
boy.
but there's a lot of everyone that helps out in the Discord, and makes a point to answer questions for other new users, like those people's requests. I value super highly. I think that's
Nice. So
just
I hope
important
that
to give back the respect.
totally. I hope that follows through with you guys as you grow and get bigger, which is inevitable. Synesthesia is awesome. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the set very soon. I just wanted to talk to you about two things. One is I don't know how active you are with it, but I did see it as an interesting thing to talk about, and kind of maybe we can talk about like the the adjacent kind of topics around it. But tia.art is a global digital art marketplace that I'm pretty sure that you are moderating or at least developing the web site for it. And you're also very big into artificial, like AI and machine learning experimentation, whether it's for coding or whether it's for visuals. So yeah, just give me a little bit of kind of the lowdown of Tia Art and kind of where it fits into your interests.
Yeah, so I will say that's a project that I had a strong role in the kind of founding of, and then I've taken a step back. I've still kind of keep an eye on it, but I wouldn't call myself like an active developer these days.
Gotcha.
But that's a spin-off from a project that a lot of people might know called Hicketnunk, which I think I might have even found you through there. I don't know if you missed that.
I love Hicketnuck. Yeah. I don't call it that. I called it Hicketnuck. Or didn't it have like a different name?
And it's HIC. It's Latin, so I don't
Okay.
think I heard almost anyone pronounce it right in the time that I messed around with it. But yeah,
Tezos oriented NFT marketplace.
that was another one of those cases of something that was very, scantily documented, and
Mm.
I found myself, you know, getting interested in it. And same story, like find myself on the Discord asking people like, "Hey, how do you do this? Why doesn't this work? Can we do this?" And then, sooner or later find myself involved in moderating their Discord, and then
Mm.
I was involved with some web development for Hicketnup for a while.
Nice. So Tia
So I was
is
on
the,
there.
because Hicketnuck, or I guess Tezos got a little bit shafted, I guess, at one point. There was like a big leak, right? Or something
It
like that. There was like a big break in. I don't remember exactly what happened. Do you remember? You must
it's
remember.
uh it's complicated. Then there's a lot of stories and views on what happened, but the short version of it is that Raphael, the guy running Hicketnunk, just shut it down one day.
Mm.
So I, you know, logged into the Discord. I've got a bunch of messages from people that are like, "Hey, why isn't the website working?" And I'm like, "Oh, the website's fine." I go load it up in the browser. It's just totally gone. And then I go into admin chat. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it's just a decision that he had made. It was complicated. There's business drama. There's strong kind of political, philosophical, economic mindsets involved that made him decide to cut the project at that point. And so
Interesting.
Teo was an attempt to kind of take the community that had formed around this thing and that had, all of their artwork hosted on these contracts and all of these, the interplanetary file system, all these things. So there's this mess of people that were just kind of confused about what to do in that moment. And I had,
Mm.
I'd been involved in some of the infrastructure projects around Hicketnunk. I'd been
Mm.
involved in a hackathon that they had done to try
Nice.
to work on some features. And part of that had been to build a voting platform that they would be able to use to kind of try to decentralize some decision making.
Mm.
And so I helped out with that community and spinning up a discourse forum for them to hold conversations around, and then making an instance of that voting platform so that this scattered, confused community could try to decide like
Re.
what are we now? What's
Right.
our name? Like,
Right. 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 Interesting.
and so yeah, I stuck around to make sure that that kind of landed in a stable place, and then
Mm-hmm.
took some steps back from it. But I love everyone over there, what they're doing. It's really, I think, kind of the only good moral,
NFT.
ethical NFT platform. Yeah.
Totally, totally. Yeah,
It's such
I
a,
loved it. I love the
yeah.
Tezos, and also that hashtag clean NFT was like, it came at such a good time of like that boom of NFTs where people were making so much money, and then it was like coming out that like the cost of hosting everything was so damaging to the earth that it's like, not only are
Yes.
you burning all this money, you're also burning all this thing, and then all the stake of what is it, the staking versus the other technology, right? Like ETH
Yeah. Staking
versus
and
mining, yeah.
hmm
And the Hicknuck was so, it was clean, simple. You're not gonna make a lot of money, but like um, a project that I did that was really successful was some Shipibo patterns from the Amazon tribes, the Shipibo tribes, and like all the proceeds I just donated, and like that was just like such an easy like
might have bought
way
that.
to. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It was like a few $100, but like a few $100 for this tribe was like a month of food, So it was like that
Hmm.
felt good, That felt good. It felt like, okay, I don't like, I'm making my art anyways. Okay, if I can make extra money from it, great. But if I can also like directly do something with it, then even better. And also like optically, that looked so good, right? If like everybody's like floundering around how much money can we make for my art, where it's like before you never even thought about that. Nobody ever thought about like, what is my image worth or what is my GIF worth? Nobody ever thought about
Yeah.
that. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, now there's real value, or now there's fake value. Now there's made up value in this thing. So it's like, let's jump on that. And like you'd be silly not to jump on it. But it also felt a little bit like, who is like, and again, no shade to people that collect NFTs. Like, I think there's a real value behind NFTs, and especially, the way that the technology works and being able to prove that you own that thing, I think is very valuable. But there's like, who are these people that are going to spend all this money on this thing? And like, okay, if I don't, are we going into the art world where I have to like find these people and like talk to them and like, it becomes like a whole different thing? Or is it just like a kind of free, like almost open marketplace where you're going to get noticed based on the quote unquote utility or value of your thing? And to me, it felt like, okay, this is a really good platform for that. And yeah, it was very successful. I sold all of them, low price, but the value was good. And yeah, I wish I would have maybe made more money from NFTs in retrospect. I think that was like a really nice opportunity for people to make money from their art. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I didn't really get burnt by it that much. A lot of people that made a lot of
A
money
lot of
from it
people did, yeah.
got burnt. They really got burnt. They didn't sell fast enough their coins,
Yeah,
or
taxes.
the taxes. Oh, dude, the taxes was wild. Or like they created this weird marketplace of like their collectors where some of them didn't have a lot of money, but they were trying to jump in the same game, and without noticing, you're kind of scamming people. Like not with no, again, like no like shame or blame or anything like that. It's just natural. If you have a market that's
Yeah, it's like
volatile,
an unintentional kind of.
unintentional, yeah, you're unintentionally helping people with a gambling problem, let's say, or something like along those lines. And when the market was bullish, then no problem, right? People are making money from buying your art. But when the market crashes, it's like, well, that guy owns my art now, but the value of it is kind of cut in half or eighth or whatever it is. So yeah, I feel like somewhat that I dodged a bullet, but at the same time, I wish I would have like jumped on it in some way, Anyway, crazy time. What a crazy fucking
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I had, some good experiences with it. Didn't get too deeply involved despite being so into the actual development of things.
Right, right.
But, I had my fun. I mostly ever just viewed it as like, hey, I can give like $3 for this gift that I think is cool, and some guy in Brazil is gonna like
Super
buy
happy.
a solid meal off that. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
And like,
felt like it was Hicket Nuncantea are like this little pocket of this very idealistic view of what it could be, and it's the market has proven to go other directions time and time again. But I will say at this point in time, a lot of projects that were trying to be very capital driven in those runs, they just burned out. They're gone. They had seed money, and then it didn't look profitable, and then it's over. But
yeah.
Tea's still going because it's just people that are interested.
Yeah, I think a lot of the community-based projects are still going to some degree, right? Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, again, the technology is so good. Like, tokens that are non-fungible that you can track on the blockchain. Just that, like, especially nowadays where we have such an issue with all this AI stuff, that it's so, what is the AI pulling from? How is it, going through all this data and scraping this data and then throwing out something that's like, okay, but what is the actual, like, where does it come from? And like NFTs, I always felt like was such a good technology to kind of help that, but it never got adopted for obvious reasons. But it could have been a great world where every art has is on the blockchain, and then when you like prompt an AI, you get 0.001 cent for whatever, if the AI is using your chain or whatever. I don't know how that would work, but like, you know what I mean? Like kind of a way to
Yeah.
we're going into this new realm of art. How do we still somehow empower the artists that all this art is based on, you know? And at one point it felt like NFTs was the way, but unfortunately it never really got adopted. I feel like it still will come back in some way. And like there are like so many, not so many, but there are a lot of I've seen like ticketing services that they're not advertising that they're on the blockchain, but they are. You know, it's their way of like internally keeping some sort of track of their tickets or track of their, you know, of legitimacy of the ticket. They're using blockchain technology.
I saw a trial project. I'm not sure what became of it, but the California DMV was going to try.
No way.
Yeah, tokenizing everything on like kind of just an internal blockchain, you know, not to sell on OpenSea or whatever, but just just as a database. Like it's a cool technology. I think you know, something that I've said a lot before when it was more hype is that like people shouldn't be interested, like people shouldn't be talking about it. It shouldn't be like a popular. It should be like HTTPS or like FTP. Like everybody uses that, but it's not like, oh, did you hear about HTTPS? It's like it should just be this. It should just be for the nerds that are making the systems, and then everyone else should just see it as like, you know, a website kind of.
Which it would have been if not for COVID and for, you know, capitalism or whatever, capitalism driven people. But that's all of the good, you know, what's that meme, you know, we can never have good stuff. It's always like, you know, taken advantage of by corporations or by shitty people, you know, or by massive global pandemics that may or may not have been fake or whatever. You know, so who knows? Maybe it's all tied in together. Maybe COVID was on the blockchain and we didn't even know about it, you know? Maybe it was
never even considered it. Yeah.
Okay, well, out of that, let's definitely jump into your set and see what you have ready for us here. We're going to jump into Kyle's set right now. Super excited to see what you have ready for us. It's going to be a lovely audio-visual set, and then dive into the sausage factory. So, yes, take it away, Kyle. Nice. I love it. That's awesome.
I just had to throw the Leon gifts.
Go for it. Nice.
A lot of duckies.
I love how his eyes are blinking on the beat. It's so funny. Cellular automata. Yeah, let's go.
Shout out Conway.
Yeah, shut up. Is he long dead or?
He died a few years back. He came up with this stuff on pen and paper.
Yeah, right? Isn't that crazy? It's so wild. Game of life, baby. Cool. love this one. So nice. So simple, but so pretty.
Sometimes the simplest concepts are the ones that work the best.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, you're showing off now, huh? I love that.
At the end, a little bit. Do it.
Nice, dude. That was awesome. That was awesome. Very nice.
Thank you. Far
Lovely,
too
lovely.
kind.
You know, I didn't actually even kind of talk to you about like VJing, like, you know, your
Yeah.
because it's such a different thing, like VJing and content creation. Yeah, I mean, I won't hit your setup in the middle, but definitely after, I'd love to jump into that again. Okay, so now we're gonna check out a little bit of how the sausage is made, and you know, take it to wherever you want, and let me know if you need any feedback from me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, do we want to kind of poke through a few, or I think the end goal here is we want to land on this little projection mapping idea that hasn't popped up yet, but I definitely want to give people a little walkthrough of this concept I used over at the Gorge.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let's take a look at it for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, I
Were
mean, all of
you
these.
with the team there at the Gorge?
That was with the Synesthesia boys. So that was with
Nice,
there, and then
nice.
and with Andrew as well, the Void.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. I didn't know. I thought that was like Joao and Theron team up. But cool. I'm happy to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they had a datagram on the trees, and then Synesthesia on the screen,
Hell yeah.
which yeah, it was great to get out to that one. There had been a few synesthesia sets before, but
Yeah,
one was in Florida, quite difficult to make it from Portland, but with Mad Zach would have loved to be there for him. Big fan.
nice.
But yeah, so this is kind of, everything in there was running real time here in synesthesia, just all GLSL code sitting over here. This is the system error scene. Kind of maybe there's one that's simple that's good to dive into. The old the old moon scene. I don't think I even pulled this one out, did I?
Is it GLSL Moon?
Yeah, so it's an actual moon. Um, what do I want to do? Edit current scene. This is a pretty recent feature. Speaking of
Mm-hmm.
not fully documented, we got cube maps now. I've been loving cube maps recently. So this is a actual, 6 images from each of the 6 spaces of the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can map them onto a quite nice looking sphere where you don't see any seams.
Mm,
And so we
nice.
got the moon for the foreground, and then same thing in the background. We have kind of a full NASA galaxy to get to just spin in all directions without running into that weird panoramic image kind of scene that you can run into. Yeah, it's the whole thing right there, pretty much.
Yeah,
It's
take
kind of
us
what I
through it a
love
little bit.
about GLSL so much is that you just get kind of everything in one little, it's all just flat right in front of you. So yeah, working through a scene, where do we want to start? Everything is in order. That's something that is both a big pro and a con of code in my
Mm-hmm.
books. You have to work in order, but you get the guarantee of everything is just happening in the order that it is. Nodes get a little confusing to me where there's a little bit of obfuscation and you're not sure what's happening when always.
Interesting you say that. I always found code. I always thought code doesn't have to be from top to bottom. Like you obviously have to read it from top to bottom, but the actual like you know like what's going on doesn't have to be in order. I thought. Is that wrong?
It is and it isn't. So that at the start here, we start out with, we're including some stuff, we're
Mm-hmm.
defining a value that we can use later. And this
Right.
stuff, like I could define that later or sooner. It's all gonna, I didn't, okay. I was like, did I just crash it? It's not gonna cause any problems as long as everything's referenced by the time
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
by the time you refer
Mm-hmm.
to it, it's been defined.
Right.
But
Right.
really, when you
Right.
get
Right.
down into, these are all kind of like helper functions you can set up in whatever order. But you get down to this render main, and I have kind of this is just wrapped in a silly extra code. But this is the core function that's going to happen every time, and this is going
Mm-hmm.
to happen in order to some degree. So right now it's
Mm-hmm.
just one line that says do this one, but that is going to bounce you over here, and then you're in here, and this is, all of this is happening in order. So you just get to run, from top to bottom. And it's never gonna kind of jump out of order on you. Um, so yeah, the actual core code of the scene right here is relatively short.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's there's a bit of some abstraction, some structures going on here. So really, like, there's a couple of these things that are like doing a lot more than one line. But you can break it down into these little segments that you can understand in just a linear order. So here, I'm setting up some variables. I'm defining a camera and where I want it to be. I'm rotating it around and then getting the background color of that galaxy. And then yeah, really this ray march hides a lot of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just go through everything's, you run through in order and then you'll hit this that says kind of jump over here and you do all these in order. And then at some point you might jump out to something, but it's all you define the order. And I'm sure node systems give you some way to do this as well, but I find a lot of it there, if you have two nodes happening before another node, does it matter which one happens first? I guess not usually in node land, but
Well, I mean, there is like a
this,
direction that you're
yeah,
going, so that is pretty important. Like most
yeah,
nodes,
you
you'll
get
have a
the
direction.
directionality.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Ray marchers, Ray marchers, we could do a whole lesson on Ray marchers.
For sure.
That's that's kind of a rabbit hole. What's yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that you're curious to see the inner workings on, or
I like that smiley face one. I thought that was really cool. And then maybe like the black and white one that we were kind of saying how it's simple. It's always cool to
yeah,
see
this
how
that's
how the simple things are not simple.
yeah, that one's got a little bit of trickery underneath it. And this one's actually a good kind of segue into the projection mapping because it's got some similar techniques
Hmm.
involved. So let's see. Oh, I need to switch over to editing this guy. Oh, I didn't know this is done long enough ago that I just have these copy
Damn,
paste
look at
in
that.
functions. This I couldn't tell you what's going on here. This is this is some high level stuff. That's something to know about code is you don't need to understand what every single function is doing, much to the way that a node works, where you just kind of need to know what are the ins, what are the outs, what's it going to do.
Right.
Same thing here. All I know is this gives me a Worley noise. You give it a position, you give it how much jitter you want, you choose whether you want Manhattan distance.
Uh-huh.
And then some wizard came up with that. It works. That's all you really need to know.
As long as the wizard knows that it works.
hmm And it's the same, yeah, same thing going on in nodes. You'll have a node
Totally.
that will,
You'll open up a
under the
whole
hood, it's going to be this
component.
exact thing.
Yeah, you'll open up a whole component and like, what the hell is going on here? For sure.
So yeah, we got all that magic. This is just to make a noise, is really all it is. A Worley noise is a nice one.
Now you probably
Um,
have built-in helpers for that, right?
I think we might have, do we have a Worley? Yep, there it is. Ligia Worley. You could
Yeah.
just, what is it? Include, throw that at the top. And that would probably replace all of that, but let's not try it. It already works. It already works. Um, so yeah, we got that magic function. We have a invert mix function. And then here's really where you get into the core of this shader. Let's see, how do we want to break it down? Um, Probably some way I can debug this out. Basically, all this thing is doing, so I can here, I'll run it a little bit. You have these various different shapes. You can have
Hmm.
a diamond shape, circle
That's
shape,
cool. Just SDFs, right?
square. Yeah, and so it's just a SDF for everything. And then because you have the SDF, you can just do a simple mix on the
Right.
SDF itself
Between.
before you do the sharp, the smooth step is what you call it in GLSL.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's gonna give you these like smooth, where every shape is able to smoothly transition to another one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't come up with any of that. It's just, um, let's see if I do shape blur. there you can kind of see that spreading out the step. When you switch that to a circle, it's just blending between the two. And then you do a hard cut on it. Then you're able to have all these different shapes. But then there's some trickiness there to where you need to know your previous shape so that you can do a smooth switch away from it and not have some of the transitions be disjointed, if that makes sense. Um, so a lot of the magic in this one is in the JavaScript, which is something that I think might be a little bit slept on in synesthesia, is the power of JavaScript.
Hmm.
That's something that I think really sets it apart from Shader Toy, um, or these other purely GLSL platforms. This is a full, you're just writing in, I think it's slightly old ECMAScript, but if you know JavaScript, you can pop in here, you can write code, and it runs this every frame before it processes the GLSL. And so this gives you a way to do some kind of more accessible code to write, some control logic, and then you can pass that along to your GLSL shader and then pull that in. And all you have to do is the visual rendering from that point. Something that I think is really great about GLSL and kind of undersold or something is that it's a really small language. Like there's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's a graphics language. It gives you the stuff you need for graphics. You've got your sign function, you've got absolute values, you got the length of a vector, but then it doesn't give you a bunch of this other stuff that you're never going to use in graphics. So it's the total number of like even just functions that exist in it. It's like the small thing that you can approach.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely part of like almost like a life mission at this point, is to like get people to understand that GLSL isn't as scary as you probably think it is. There's some there's some difficult little catches about it, but like I just jumped into it and it worked out. Maybe not everyone, but I think it's people talk about it like it's the dark arts. So yeah, this all this is doing, this just kind of holds on to a couple. This tells you what your last shape is, what your next shape is, and then how much of the way blended through you are. And then just every frame, it's going to be asking, did he press a button? Should we update it? So then it's just always keeping your current one on whatever it is, A or B. And then it's got that second slot to mix
Mm-hmm.
over in. And so you do have to limit when it can mix over. Otherwise, you're going to get the sudden jump. But yeah, that's kind of the core, the thesis of that scene. And then let's see, maybe we jump into the projection map.
Yeah, I'd love to
I've
see
got
how that all worked out.
two versions of this guy. So I think this should be the simpler one. This thing was this came together very last
Nice.
minute. It was just this idea that entire event, I didn't have a huge amount of lead time planning on it. It just kind of, in the moment of was kind of grinding this together. So I have the first version that we used for the first set, and then, you know, snapshotted that, and then spent some time like the next day grinding on it to get it where it was for Cut Chemist. Um, but so let's see, the basic
Super cool.
concept with this one. Thanks. Yeah, here we can play around with it a little bit first, maybe, just to
Nice.
see some of the looks that it can get.
Nice.
There you go. It's only mode. Oh, it's not going to work without audio in. your bang pulses, always helpful. Never a screen I think that a central pulse doesn't look good on. Little glimmer mode. So, and you'll see here, I'll zoom out on the text a little bit here just so you can see. It's maybe a little small, but that's the whole thing. It's 80 lines,
Really interesting.
and most of it's just loading images. Um, let me, let's see here. I should pull up a little browser tab. Some wildly slow file systems on this computer. It's a deep mystery.
So is it just picking up like the vector image of the original, stage designed by
It's
TAS, or is it because obviously you're not
yeah,
being
I'm
able
trying
to
to
draw that? Are you making that into an SDF?
you're you're already on the right path. Yep.
Gotcha.
So
Interesting.
here's
Okay.
here's you've seen this a million times, I'm
Yes.
sure,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
RGB basic
Pixel map.
mapping thing that you can work from. And so
Yeah.
this is something that I've been looking at and thinking about for a while, and based off of that kind of shapeshifter SDF to 2D to or 2D to SDF and back to 2D, that kind of approach. I kept wondering if there's a way to apply it to this. And what I came up with was here, we'll go to my website for a second, land on this little web tool.
Hmm.
Is this where did we go?
Nice.
It's the only way I remember how to get to this. If anyone else wants to use it, it's up online. If anybody has
Hell yeah.
this very niche task. Um, so I vibe coded this thing, right? And this lets you take in, let's see, here's that incredibly slow file picker. This lets you grab that image as an input, and then you can mask out the various RGB channels on it. This gives you a little preview of the masking you're doing, and then
Hmm.
it just runs it through SDF algorithm.
So you get the code of the SDF itself. Oh, it actually
You get,
produces an image.
yeah, a 2D image SDF. The
Hmm.
the next step up would be getting like an analytic, parametric kind of SDF out of this,
Right.
and I do think that's possible. They might be a little heavy to run, but there are some crazy some work I've seen done to generate an SDF function out of 2D images, even out of 3D models.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure there must be, right? Because anytime you're converting from one thing to another, it's got to generate some sort of code for it.
Yeah, well, so the way this one's processing is just off of the pixel data. So it's taking this in and then it's using this actually a really cool library I found. It was use.gpu that has this great SDF algorithm that is GPU accelerated even in the browser.
Hmm.
That's how it's
Hmm.
able to run this so quickly. But yeah, so this just gives you out, it analyzes on a pixel by pixel basis to tell you how far away is the nearest edge is kind of like what an SDF
Right.
is doing. Um, and so yeah, this lets you get, just kind of another piece of data, another kind of format to put this data into. And so I go through and I took each of the channels to make one of these SDFs. And I think I made a mode, yeah, the multi-channel mode. This is going to do the same thing for the red, the green, and the blue. And then it's just going to pack them all into one RGB image.
Hmm.
It takes a second or two. And so this is kind of like the core input for that projection mapping shader. And this is telling you, in each of the color channels, how close are you to this set of elements.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's see, pop back over here. We loaded a few of those in. I've got the SDF for a couple of different sizes that you can calculate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's giving me this kind of morphing edge. Let me turn off some of the effects.
Nice. Damn.
So we're taking, and then here we can actually, oh, I forgot, I have these little debug lines. So this is one, I will grant the one huge difficulty of GLSL coding is you have to do your own debug
Right.
visualizers.
There's
Anytime
no
you want to know what's
print.
going on, you have to, yeah. So you get used to visual debugging. So that's all these return lines scattered in is just a way to
Mm.
return early and send that to the screen. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right up here, all I've done so far is like load, I think the different, the images into channels.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, am I gonna get that noise every time? So yeah, that's, just outputting the raw image. And then in here, I'm taking each of those channels and I'm kind of like offsetting them slightly and doing a pulse going along the kind of brightness of each one at a different time, if that makes sense. You end up with this
Yeah.
shrinking color thing. But, oh, that one's going to run all to black because it's going into the deep negative values.
Mm-hmm.
So here, can I mute the audio on here? There we go. So now you've got red, green, blue, these separate groups that are pulsing based on their distance from those different groups, each in their own way. And with, some controls over like the size of the pulses. I think this one has not the best controls. But yeah, so then at that point you just go and let's see, down here, just collapse it all down to black and white. Now you've got this kind of endlessly generative running, mixing together designs that sometimes feel like they're just a random shape, but then they somehow condense into the thing, the mapping that you're seeing.
Right.
Um,
Super cool.
so then, yeah, the next kind of step of trick from that was that if you have an SDF, you can also generate a normal map
Oh, nice.
like this.
Right.
And
Right.
so,
Right. Right. Right.
just by you sample the point that you're at on the sort of height map or the SDF, and then you sample a couple points next to you, and by telling how much higher or lower those are, you know
Mm.
the kind of slant, the angle or the normal of that,
Mm-hmm.
if you're viewing it as a height map. And so
Mm-hmm.
now you can kind of get the color tells you the relative direction you are from the closest point
Mm.
in the design.
Right. 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 Right.
And so that gives you the info that's needed to do these kind of looks where it's moving radially to or maybe this one might be more visible. You get these radial motions relative to the shapes of the mapping.
Sick. So cool. It's like almost like a like some sort of specular, you know, hit or something like that.
Yeah, it just adds this little glimmer. And that was one that we got heavy use out of even when it wasn't like the main thing running. Like we would just have maybe dial up the contrast. And then this kind of layer is just like something that Theron had the master output mixed from this, and I was spouting stuff into him. So he's able to use this as like just a little sauce on top of whatever's happening to give it a little pizzazz. And I feel like there really wasn't a scene that this didn't work with. And then yeah, so I think that's all the way through the code of that one. It's a really short one.
Super
That's
cool.
or I guess here we're just, we take that normal value, you do this little magic equation to tell you what direction the light is.
Mm.
It's another one of those. If you can copy paste it,
Not quite right.
that's all you need to know how to do.
I like that
Yeah,
little.
yeah,
That's funny.
and even like with a typo after it too. That tells you how
Ah,
fast I was moving.
that's funny.
So yeah, that's the first version of it, and then this one's kind of just the same thing, but juiced up a little bit, just
Right.
a little cleaned up, a little more controls. Got a palletizer to fit whatever color scheme's going on. Um, yeah, I made this a little more of a smooth transition here.
Hmm.
We can melt down into shimmer mode
Nice.
and back to solid.
Interesting. So I guess I have a few questions about this. So can you just open the pixel map itself, like the RGB pixel map? When you're making that RGB pixel map, that PNG, um, are you like, are you thinking about because when I make a pixel map for projection mapping, I'm just making
Hmm.
like a blueprint of where things are. So
Hmm.
like you don't really have to think about the color of something or like how things interact with each other. There is like a little bit, but not really. When you're making a pixel map for this, are you having to think about like how the like okay, anything that's blue or anything that's red, anything that's green, they're going to interact with each other differently, or is it more just like it doesn't really matter what you decide is blue, green, and red. You're just kind of giving it some sort of way to visualize it. Is that more accurate?
I think it's more in that category, yeah, where really you're just trying to I think you could subdivide that any number of ways. And if I had more time, that's something I would have liked to do is just make a bunch of the different RGB input, pixel maps to begin with, a bunch of
Well, like
more
if you
versions of
made
this.
this, yeah, if you made this a different RGB, would it be a different result?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the different groups each kind of have their
the
own,
groups.
there's like three pulsing lines that are happening at
Hmm.
once. And so you're going to tend to get like this whole green shape. The outline's going to come
Is
around that whole thing at once. It's going to
right.
come this bigger shape that morphs in, and then it'll hit that perfect outline for a moment. And then it'll
Right.
start tracing into the inner part of it. And it's going to
Gotcha.
do that each for the green, the red, and the blue. But you
Gotcha. So
could
that
subdivide these a little differently, and you would still have, as long as they're all kind of cool, cohesive looking groups.
but that grouping is important. Like you have to think about what the grouping is going to be in order for it to get the thing to look interesting. So I guess I have a question because when I had Alex on, when I had Cybernetics on, we wanted to we did like a live stream. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all this. This is awesome, super interesting, and it's getting my mind kind of
This
like
is
thinking.
this is my favorite part of the whole thing is sharing GLSL with people. I'm like, I just want to GLSL pill everybody I run into.
Well, you're doing a great job. So, so when we were doing to do a live stream, and the idea was I was going to give him the UV maps of you kind of see like we're in these like frames, this frame, like this frame around me and the frame around you. Um, so the idea was I was going to give him the UV map of that in this RGB kind of thing, and then he could make instead of like just putting like a texture over it, the actual thing that he would make would be in that kind of UV map of the thing, right? Because this is like a 3D geometry, and it has a UV map, and then the texture is applied through the UV map, right? Like just a classic,
Mhm.
3D workflow. So there was like two versions of what we were trying to do. And, one was, so he was like, yeah, just give me the RGB of it. Right. But then I'm like, okay, well, I have like three different UV sets. I have my guest, the guest frame, the host frame, and the set frame, the back frame. So I was thinking, okay, I'll just give you each one as a different, one is a red, as one is green, as one is blue. But then obviously because they're all in the same UV space, then it overlapped. So it ended up looking something like, I'm going to share my screen here because I'm really interested to see if you have like a good solution for this. And like, obviously the best solution would have been to just separate the two into two different things. Wait, let me just get my thing here. Sorry. So, this is obviously like, overlaid, right? Where I have one channel is one set of UVs. Sorry. And then another channel is another set of UVs. And you can see they're different. And then the last channel is another set of UVs. So I'm basically packing RGB into one thing through the channels. And that was a little bit difficult for him to like understand how to use it because, it's like channels of RGB. It's not like the actual, like if I look at this and take the R values, it's obviously not going to be the R channel, right? Because the R values are going to be this red and where they overlap. Whereas the channels are kind of separated into their own 0 to 1 value. So he couldn't really use it without like completely changing the way that the synesthesia is reading the RGB values. So we kind of like called it like, like let's not do it. But so yeah, I could have just like made this, get like this complete UV set red, right? And then just given him three different versions of it. But then we would have to run three different patches. So we ended up scratching it. But yeah, do you have like a way to, do you understand like the problem, and do you have like a solution for it, I guess is the question.
I think so. It doesn't sound. It seems to me like it should work. So I'm maybe missing what the hitch was, but the being able to pull from the RGB channels separately is something you can access pretty cleanly in here.
So even if the image looked like this, if I pulled the red channel, I would get this.
It should be, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we misunderstood. Maybe me and Alex misunderstood each other about what each one
Unless, yeah, there
was.
was some color, unless something got, I don't know, condensed down. But yeah, you should be able to pluck out the channels. That's some kind of classic RGB packed
Right, but it's
three bits
different
of data
when
packed into RGB. Yeah.
that's what I thought too. But it's different when they're not overlapping. Like when your pixel map, your RGB data is not overlapping. So you have solid red, solid green, solid blue, and here the solid red, solid green, solid blue is overlapping. So, but yeah, I also thought that once you like
Yeah.
take the actual channel, you would just get a clean, quote unquote, clean plate.
Yeah, you should. Like right now, what's displayed has quite a bit of overlap in it, but you
Uh
could,
huh.
I could just pull out the just return RRR to get just the red channel as a white, and that should be
Uh huh.
fairly clean.
Interesting. Okay, so Alex was being lazy, so
GG.
fuck you, Alex. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We love Alex. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, I guess
I'm sure
I
there's some
thought,
snafu about it. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think it was just like time. Anyways, what we ended up doing worked fine as well, so I'm not like upset about it by any stretch of the imagination. I just was interested to see what the actual solve was that. Okay, awesome. So,
All I want people to know is this is short. You could vibe code this. You can read this in one little sitting. There's only like 10 functions involved. Um, yeah, we got the IDE built in right here.
hell yeah. I'm waiting
If you ever
for
want to learn.
the synesthesia prompter. I'm sure it's on the way to being a reality. Just sit there and be like, I want GLSL. I want fractals moving inside of an array, and yellow.
I am absolutely working on something like that. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I don't. Have you seen the Mad Mapper prompter? I haven't tried it myself, but I saw it in all social media. It's like Mad Mapper
No,
has like an ISF shader thing where you can prompt it and it just makes it for you. I don't know how good it is, but their social media makes it seem like it's decent.
that's sweet. Yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
to check that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for showing us into the world of oofd and synesthesia. Oofd, oofd.
It's literally cannot be pronounced wrong because it was never meant to be pronounceable.
So first, I want to just kind of go back to our first portion of the conversation and just talk to you about VJing because we didn't really talk about VJing. You know, what has been your kind of what has been your experience VJing, and you know, when did you first get into it? Outside of like making visuals and coding visuals, do you have an origin story for your VJing as well, or was it something that just kind of came as you were going down that rabbit hole?
I think it really came the visual art and code art came sort of first for me before
Mm-hmm.
I had people say like, "Oh, hey, like, can you do this behind me when I'm performing music?" That wasn't like, for some reason, that wasn't a natural connection that I made.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just as I think as I started making more and more visual stuff, especially when it's audio reactive, it's kind of naturally got into a little bit. I'm really not like a huge VJ. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not a uh like what's the super hot fire. I'm not a VJ, but it's it's you know, it's just kind of naturally part of my world. You work on a VJ app all day and you're gonna know how to
Mm-hmm.
VJ, I think.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I had some early y- y- when I was still a little more in the Blender world. I had some friends who were musicians that saw stuff I was working on that they liked and wanted to use for tour visuals, and so
Mm-hmm.
got some of my first taste through that way of like producing content and then getting to see somebody perform it on a big stage. And that was just such a fulfilling thing to me that that kind of became the path that I wanted to go. So I love I love to VJ is in, like an incredible, being able to perform at the Gorge is such a crazy opportunity. But the really I get most of my joy from like seeing other people perform with stuff that I've
Mm.
created.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I love that. I love that topic of conversation. I've had it a few times now, actually, pretty recently. The most recent was with Keith Anderson. Shout out Fractal Visions. You know, just kind of that conversation around playing other people's content, or like or actually, interestingly enough, with Keith, it was about getting other people's content and playing it. And
Hmm.
recently, I spoke to Isosceles. Um, Shit, I can't remember his first name, but Isosceles, really awesome guy, makes super cool visuals, and he is also
Somewhere in
not
the
really a
back of my
VJ.
mind too.
Yeah, Patrick
Is
maybe,
it
I don't remember.
Jason?
Yeah, Jason,
There we
Jason
go.
Fletcher. Yeah, thank you. Embarrassing.
He's the man.
So he's the man. And you know, and he also like doesn't really like to VJ. He likes to make content for other people, and I think that's like a very interesting
Yeah.
kind of like maybe like personality trait of like this, like it's not like necessarily to do with ego or not ego. It's really like something outside of it, because there's still an ego aspect of like play my shit, right, which is
Hmm.
totally fine, obviously, but it's like this different kind of like almost like an introverted kind of space of like I want to do
I think
it but I
so.
don't want to do it, and like I want to be part of it but I don't want to be part of it, and like yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting. You know, this kind of I like to like think about the psyche of a VJ. You know, like what is it? Because it's a very interesting
Yeah,
psyche.
it's VJing to begin with is a little bit of that kind of introverted form of performing where
Right.
you're like,
Nobody's
I
watching
want
you.
you to all
You're in the
to
back of
like look at my art, but I'm
right,
hiding
but
in the
don't look at
back.
me.
I'm wearing all
Right.
black. Like, but yeah, so then to it is something, there's something interesting psychologically about like I don't even want to do that. I just want to give my stuff to the guy that's doing that.
Hmm.
But
Are you
yeah, there's
do you feel like you're an introvert? Like, do you have stage fright, or is it something that you don't like contend with, or is it just as simple as you'd rather other people do it?
I feel like I have a bit of both in me, but it's really I got a deep introspect on it. I I think I just like to see something kind of take its own form or take its own like seeing something go off into the wild and then like show up on its own is like the coolest to me. Like if somebody sends me like a clip of just somebody I don't even know that like randomly ended up using something of mine in their performance, that's like I don't know, something about it hits different for me, I think.
Hmm. So interesting. I think that there's so much merit in both of the schools of kind of like approach, but I think the approach of, yeah, I want other people to play my art. There's something very, um, like pseudo spiritual in the way that it's like, like what's that classic passing it on, like somebody does something good for you, so you pass it on to somebody else. The
Oh
what's
yeah,
that?
double it and give it to the next person.
Yeah, like something like around those lines, like there's something
Yeah.
about kind of like that idea, because you could easily just keep it for yourself and not even do anything with it, right? Like maybe, okay, yeah, maybe you can make money by selling packs and whatever, like okay, fine, but there's something about that, like that you don't have the need in yourself to want to do it, but you want to empower other people to be able to. I think that's very unique, and almost like, yeah, it's very unique. It's like I don't know what to compare it to really. You maybe like people that make samples or something, but like even then, it's like most people that make music, even if they're just making samples, they're still gonna wanna like. There's a really thin line between somebody who makes like a VST and somebody who like makes music, right? Like that's like a
Yeah,
thin
yeah. I mean,
line.
I think about those guys a lot. Like, I think there's a lot in common with like, the guys building synthesizers who are like
Right,
not, you don't think of
performing.
them as like the music legend, but like your
Right,
favorite tracks have that one synth sound
totally,
on them, and like they
totally,
actually made that, like the ones that like dreamed it up or dreamed up the framework that it could exist even within.
totally.
Um, I Yeah, I think there's a lot of those like kind of unsung people behind the scenes putting anything together. Um,
Totally.
yeah, and I'm also, one element of it is like VJing is hard. I have so much respect for people that like it's crazy hours. It's like it's a lot of work. So
Yeah,
there is something nice of like not, I get some of the joy of the image on the big screen without having pulled that crazy all-nighter or like
for
multiple
sure.
all-nighters.
For sure. I mean, it's what we said before. You really have to love it, right, to want to do it to the full extent. I think
Hmm.
it's probably like that with a lot of things. But VJing for sure, yeah. I mean, it's also like, working your way up the ladder, having to do full 12-hour night sessions. There's a lot there, there's a lot there. Interesting. So, shifting a little bit, this is like a totally huge shift, I would say, but I'll see how, let's see what you think. Um, Anthropology. Can you give us
Okay.
like I don't know, I personally
Bring
find it
it
very
all the way back.
interesting.
Yeah.
I love anthropology, I love reading ugh, what's his fucking name? The Israeli guy, gay dude. He wrote Sapiens and Yuval Noah Harari.
Uh, Ferrari. Yeah.
Yuval Noah Harari. Um, yeah, like I love reading his stuff. I really enjoy like when anthropology is brought up in like history discussions, because it's like almost like a way more uh, non-abstract version of history. Where it's like it's more science based ish. Definitely more than like what is it called? Digging up things. Oh my god, I'm so dead today. Digging up things.
Archaeology.
archaeology, which is all like, personal, so subjective. Maybe now with like, geo being able to like, take the mass of it and understand it, how far it goes, but then you're just getting a date. You don't know the actual story behind it. So I don't know. I feel like anthropology is a little bit more like evidence based, but then again, I'm sure if you're an anthropologist, you're probably like, nah, So what is your kind of like take on
It's,
it? Like, do you bring it up in your day to day life? Is there any connection to your art or your tech art that connects to it in some way? And is it something
I
that you think
mean,
about ever?
it's not like I don't think very actively about the
Okay,
field of anthropology, but I think
fair.
it's a subject matter that's like it's it's relevant to everybody.
Yeah,
It's the study of who we are, what we are. So everyone experiences that, everyone has thoughts about it. Um, so yeah, it's relevant to everything that everybody does. It's just, not really, there's not jobs around it. It's not prioritized by business,
right.
unfortunately. Um, it's, oh, I lost my thought. Yeah, it informs how I think about the world
Mm-hmm. It
for
must,
sure.
right?
The stuff that I
It
learned,
must.
yeah, it's, I like to think that it helped me become a much more rounded person
Hmm.
in how I work in the world. Kind of forced me to understand the variety of different perspectives that you can have, the different ways that
Mm-hmm.
you can come to forming knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of giving me some frameworks to think about the communities that I take a part in as well.
I love that. I love that. That's a great answer. Like understanding the human story or the human condition, helping you understand the human communities that you are part of is that's very potent. That's very potent, and it's not like it's not. There's no. I always forget to say this in English, but it's like is it almost it's not it's not understood beforehand. There's like not like a it's a it's a good take. It's a good take, and it definitely makes you into somebody who has a more broader perspective. Is there anything you could share with us from your anthropological days that that stuck with you, or a good quote or something like that? I'm putting you on the spot. I feel. I'm sorry.
No, it's too far
Okay,
flung from my
fair.
recent memory. There's little factoids that come up in the moment that make me think. Was the one I was thinking about the other day was just, I mean, a lot of it just kind of, I learned a lot how little we know about some
Hmm.
things. Like,
Right.
we're not totally sure what the story is of how people ended up on the Americas. Like,
Right.
even just like point blank, we don't know the date that it happened.
Right.
We don't know the past that they came. We have a couple of leading
Theories.
theories, but then
Yeah.
we get randomly some like archaeological finding in like South America that predates most of the findings in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a huge
Right. Right. Right.
question of like, how did that happen?
Right.
Um, so yeah, just I'm understanding how, we're still in the moment of figuring out so many things. Like we really, as a society, we just don't. There's so many things we don't know, even about
Are
ourselves.
you are you skeptical about like like the Graham Hancocks of the world, or like the alternative ideas of ancient civilizations and things like that? Are you more skeptical towards it, or are you more understanding of it because we have so little understanding of things?
You know, I can't speak too deeply on their specific theories. The stuff that we do know, there's definitely people that are like, they
It's
we
wrong.
know so little that we know nothing. Like
Right. Right.
I don't like that perspective either. Like
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
the work that is being done is real work, and they're finding real stuff, and we have some actual
True.
data points, even if we don't know the whole through
Story behind
line
it.
of all of them.
Right. Right.
But it's at the very least, it's extremely understandable that like everyone is constantly searching for something that explains the what we're all in.
Mm. Yeah, it's a pretty classic thing. Um, I also think that there's like, we're in such a post-truth world, especially in the past whatever decade, but even before that, you know, even before the advent of the internet, we're such in a kind of interesting point in culture and like society where it's like, yeah, the winners tell the history, write the history books, and the Western civilization is the be all of it all, especially because we're in it, right? And like there's all these like indigenous ideas that are kind of like thrown under the rug, and you really have to like search really deep for like any like alternative view of things. And like modern society is so new compared to like ancient civilizations and indigenous people, and especially like in the 30s and 40s when those two civilizations started to bridge a lot more, with mushrooms being brought into Western culture, and kind of like the idea that there's something more to us than just the baseline consciousness. I also think it's like post-industrial revolution where people were like so kind of like, industrial revolution was like, this is the answer. This is what it is. It's machines. It's it's industry and society, and we're like in this post-Renaissance world, and then it's like, wait a second, all this stuff is really bad. Okay, yeah, we're making money and we're making buildings, but we're destroying the earth and killing people. And then it's like that whole flip side of like, wait a second, our story is so much more than just our technology. It's like such an interesting point in time where you can map it of like, here is a massive turning point shift in like the psyche of how people view things, whether it's like LSD or whether it's, like I said, like the mushrooms, from that nice lady, I can't remember her name now, but, or even just like uncovering like Gobekli Tepe, right? Like here's a new story of like 12,000-year-old, what is it called? Hunter gatherers that had like proper understanding of things, and like, predates anything that we understood about these hunter gatherers, and we thought that they were primitive and didn't know anything, and like here's proof that they did. And that just happens all the time, like these predates things, that just change and shift the narrative. And I think because we're kind of like in this era where it's like everything is fake and everything is not fake, and so much data but so much bullshit in the data, it's like such
Yeah.
an interesting time.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge, a cultural, a psychological shift for society in so many ways. Something else that's coming to my mind is that we found the end of the world, right?
Right.
That's a big thing that happened. That
True.
was like
True.
the unknown was like
For
this
sure.
thing, who knows how far this goes? And then one day we were just like, oh,
Oh.
there it is. That's the other side. I'm back. I we've we got the whole thing now. So maybe
For
that kind
sure.
of drives a shift to
Yeah.
introspection.
Totally. And that's relatively new. That's relatively new. It's not even. It's a few hundred years. It's not even that old. Um, Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I always have this feeling that I should have learned. I should have studied like a science or, something outside of art. Because I have such a like interest in these things, and I'm such a sideliner. Like, okay, maybe now in my mid 30s, I'm like maybe more knowledgeable and I read more and I spend a lot of time watching videos and stuff. But it's like I wish I had that basis of some sort of scientific education, um, to like rely on instead of just my intelligence, and like I don't know, like a few years ago before I had my kid, I was like, I'm gonna go back and study. I don't know. At the
Yeah.
time, I was wanted to study astrophysics, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
but wait a second, I suck at math and I fucking hate, like all this stuff. But there was like a point for a second. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the hardest one? So yeah, I don't know, but the more I the more I ingest and like the more knowledgeable I get on different subjects and topics, then the more I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really need that basis. But then every once in a while, I'm like duped by somebody, or like I follow like some sort of somebody who's supposed to be somebody who has a deep knowledge of something, but then ends up turning out to be a charlatan, or whatever, doesn't actually have all the requirements to be talking about the thing. And I'm like, well, if I would have had the basis of this thing, maybe I would have been able to suss that out, easier.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the biggest skills that I do still use from anthropology is just the general scientific literacy of like, feeling comfortable to pull open a scientific publishing on
Right.
something that's, when you see the article, you see the headline show up everywhere, and then they all link back to the same one article, and you find that one, and that links back to the actual journal, and then you can get in
Yeah.
there and you can at least just read the last paragraph of the abstract, and like
And be like, is this
knowing
bullshit or
how to
not?
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing how to do that and like trusting yourself to do that is gives you such a huge uh you know
Advantage.
advantage over,
Yeah.
yeah, over at least in terms of understanding what's happening in science, which is, can help ground so much of what you're doing or thinking in the world.
Totally. Yeah, it's like a different level of critical thinking, right? Like critical thinking now is becoming the most important thing to teach, the next generation, because of this post-truth that we're in. And like understanding the basis of a science thing is like kind of that times whatever. It's like a more valuable way of doing that for sure. Um,
And yeah, and,
super
and being able to understand that like there is bad science, like there are bad papers,
Definitely.
but
Totally.
like that doesn't, you don't have to write off the entirety of science if you can pick out which ones are bad and which ones are
For
good.
sure. For sure. I mean, that's another part of the post-truth world, is that so much science is, uh, paid for, which is not like, obviously it's okay to pay for science. Like that's how it all works, grants and shit like that.
Yeah,
But when it's a special interest company that wants to prove A and not B, then it becomes problematic, right? I mean, our whole
yeah, when
food
the
system in the
funding gets
States.
tied to the results of,
Totally. Like the whole food pyramid in the States, this is like from the 90s, is all because of that. It's all because of paid for
hmm
funding by special interest groups. And then you can go back to cigarettes, and how that was proven scientifically to be healthy for you. And it's like, where does that begin and where does that end in this world that we live in now? um but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
being
that,
able to
that
look at a
that one in particular, I felt myself personally in the past get pulled into some kind of diet fads that, nothing that was that bad for me, but in retrospect, I'm like, there was some of that wasn't legit, and I might not have ever even pieced that apart if I didn't have a nutritionist for a sister.
nice,
But
nice, that's so good.
yeah,
That's so nice.
it's yeah, it's very difficult to find the balance of what science to trust.
It is. And it's annoying because, like you said, it's like the both sides of the spectrum. It's like you can be like, hey, did you read this? Here's something that proves that what you're doing is bad. And then the person that you're saying it to is like, well, here's 20 things that prove that it's good. And then it's like, yeah, but that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is that those 10 things are bullshit, and this one is like legit. And then it's like, and then you have people that are just denying everything, right? It's like deny every scientific thing. It's like really that thin line is becoming thinner and thinner. And I don't know, like, again, going back to AI and like, LLMs, does it make it better or worse, right? Because if the LLM is just reading into scraping the scientific research in journals, it's gonna come up with, sugar is good for you, right? Or whatever. I don't know. Fat is bad for you, right? Which is what the whole thing was. It's like
Yeah, oh
fats are
yeah,
bad for you. It's like, is it gonna be
saturated
able to
fat
just,
or cholesterol or
yeah, is it
yeah.
gonna be able to
Those
discern
ones.
that kind of information? And like, I don't know if you've had this experience. Maybe your sister's a nutritionist, so maybe. But like, I have my pediatrician who's also my like doctor. He's like a pretty like free thinker, right? Like he'll have his opinions about things that I disagree with, but he'll also be like totally open to me showing him something, right? And like, but there's like a very thin line about it. Like if I bring up anything to do with the, you know, vaccines or anything like that, it's like, no, this is it, you know. And it's like, well, okay, I get that that's what you think and that's like what your research has shown you, but here's some, no, I don't want to see it. You know, it's like there's some things that are like a complete red line. Like when it comes to food or nutrition, he's always interested to hear about this and that and this and that. But because the vaccine world is so full of lies and bullshit, and then also like fake science, right? Like the total opposite of like, you know, not looking at the real data and looking at this, you know, whatever, that it's like totally there's no way, there's no place for, you know, doing your own research, right? Which is kind of like that whole conversation around COVID was don't do your own research, which is like, you know, the totally opposite of like what research is all about. So I'm like, okay, are the LLMs going to be like that kind of, you know, picking this kind of thing of like, you know, not doing their own research per se? Or, you know, I wonder how it's going to, because that's going to be even now, right? Like you want to do your own research, you start typing into Google and do your research, but it's becoming less and less, right? Like, you know, I'm becoming less and less of a researcher and more of a, okay, I'll read the, you know, the prompt, the answer to the prompt, and maybe click on a few links here and there to see what it links. But it's really like, what is it feeding me? And what is the narrative that it's feeding me? You know, is the narrative clean or is it, you know, I just wonder how that's going to all pan out. And they're like, yeah, we have critical thinking, but do our kids, you know, do they have the ability to like
Yeah.
think for themselves?
Oh, I can't even, that's, I can't, it's so impossible to imagine what the world's going to look like for people growing up in today and when they're adults. Like, I don't even know how I would
Yeah,
try to start thinking about planning for a career or like anything.
totally.
It feels like a totally changing ground currently.
Totally, totally changing ground. Yeah, I feel bad for, you know, Gen Z. I feel like they're really in the middle of it, kind of like we were a little bit, where it was like, you know, the '90s, 2000s were kind of like this boom of like the internet and this insecurity of like what the world is going to be like. I think in retrospect, things didn't really change that much for us. Maybe like smartphones, okay, was like a kind of a big shift. But like the Gen Z guys that are going into college, like what do you study if you're going into college now? Like it's impossible to know, you know? And like I'm hoping my kid is only 2.5. I'm hoping that by the time he's in that age where like, you know, whatever, don't study this. AI is doing it already, you know? There's like there'll be something else probably, but at least there's like the transitional period is so difficult if you're in that generation that's like has to like almost shepherd the transition, you know?
Yeah, I think the only hope is that they end up with some more fundamental kind of understanding of it, the way that like I don't think anyone was really able to make sense of the internet until at least Gen X and millennials who had grown up a bit with it started to, become adults and, with their own past experience to reflect on like,
Yeah,
now we have the millennial parents and they have like for the first time sort of, I think, a sense of like what level of moderation is good or required for kids on the internet.
totally.
'Cause that's
Totally.
we grew up in the Wild West,
Wild
I would
West.
say.
Totally. You know, we grew up in the wild, like we grew up in the Wild West, but at the same time, I feel like because we had that A and B very clearly, like, okay, yeah, like I'm addicted to my phone, but way less than like I see, you know, people 10 years younger than me. You know what I mean? Like I can put it down and like operate in society or operate in a conversation. I see kids, a lot of them really can't. Like if they put it down, there's like this like they don't know what it is, what is outside of that. And yeah, moderation will help, and you know, obviously like the parents have a responsibility, but I don't even think it's like I think it's outside of that. I really think it's because they don't have a they only have a B. You know, they don't have what it is to be without the phones. And I feel like, Gen Z are a little bit in that period of like, okay, we have what it is before AI, and we have what is eventually going to be what it is with AI. So in a way, a little bit they're kind of going through what we went through with smartphones and the internet.
Yep,
um
test subject generation.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, full access to pornography downloading in seconds was probably not great for our generation, but we know what it was like to wait for that image to load. Like
Yeah.
we know what it was like to wait for 10 minutes to see a naked lady. And now it's like, we have that AB, we have that respect,
I learned my Neopets HTML.
Yeah, exactly. Your
You don't get to
Neopets.
customize your Facebook page or your
Yeah,
Instagram.
exactly. It's a better example. Thank you. So okay, shifting, or a little bit kind of relevant. What is your favorite coding language and why?
I mean, it's GLSL has got to be the winner, right? I gotta say it. And I think I started to list a lot of the reasons, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's visual. That's I think that personally that helped me learn it a lot
Hmm.
in that you can see just immediately whatever you do, you make the change and then you got the bug right there, or it takes it renders so quickly, it all happens so fast that it's yeah, you just get like a faster feedback loop of learning, I think.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
seen people pick up GLSL as kind of, without a whole ton of other programming language experience and
Yeah.
be able to learn it. So I think that while it's viewed as like this scary thing, it's one of the better like learning languages,
Hmm.
one to start on.
Interesting. Yeah, I've
It's,
heard that from a few people.
it's strictly typed, which is difficult in some ways. It teaches you some things about how all code works. Most people do start with a dynamically typed language, which is something like JavaScript or Python, where you just say the variable. You say
Hmm.
let this thing equal, and maybe you type a string or you type a number or something, and it just says, okay, you set that to one, that's a number.
Right.
But in GLSL, you have to say set a number and then give it a name and set it equal. You have to tell it what
Hmm.
type it is beforehand.
Right. Like a, what is it? Not a constant, but it is a constant. No, a constant versus a variable.
There's it applies for both a constant or a variable. You
Okay. Okay.
you would you define it at the start of,
Declaration.
you declare it a float, or you declare it a vector or a texture or something,
Right.
just these basic
Right.
data types, and then it can't change after. And so
Right. Right.
that's a
Right. Right.
difficult thing at the start for a lot of people, but then I think once you get into it, it doesn't have really all that. I mean, there's gotchas, but it's not like it's a very thin language. Like it just does the one thing that it does, and it
Hmm.
does it great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exists just to let you talk to the GPU is really what it is.
Yeah. Do you, coming from doing poi and that kind of like flow, ID, concept, do you get into flow states when you're coding? Like, do you,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, definitely. You can, I'll find, I can have hours fly by. I'll just be so in the zone of what I'm doing, and when you're coding visuals as well, you're
The
constantly
feedback.
watching visuals the whole time too. Like,
Hmm.
that was a big thing that drew me to GLSL from, I mentioned Blender previously, and I still love Blender. It's like one of the coolest projects out there. The fact that that can exist for free. Yeah. Um, but it's just the fact that it lets you do stuff that can take so long was a
Hmm.
difficulty for me. And
Yeah.
it's getting better and better every version. You've got Eevee, And even there's like a new version of EV now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's pretty sick. It's like a
where
ray
you can
traced
get
version of
this,
it.
yeah, you get the response faster, but there are
Yeah,
still, I hated getting into the moment where I'm like, put together the full render and then you render it overnight and then you check in the morning and you left one little thing wrong or something. Like in GLSL, I'm just always in the mode basically. Like there might be a time where there's an error that's preventing it from compiling, but you get that put back together and then back to 1080p, 60 frames a second, visuals coming at you.
yeah. Did you ever dive down like node based systems?
I've, explored it a little bit. Touch designer is still feels wildly foreign to me. When
Interesting,
people start talking about
interesting.
anything that ends with the op, I get uh, a little confused.
Yeah,
Although I think those are, from my understanding, that's almost one to one with the data types that I was just talking about, where you have,
very similar. I mean,
yeah.
it's obfuscated in a different way, or I guess maybe that's the wrong word, but it's the abstracted in a different way. Um,
Hmm.
it's like less about data types and more about like you know I guess it's more about data types, less about like you know the actual parameter of that data type, if that makes any sense. Like it's not a float, it's a channel, right? But a channel is technically a float because it's just a number. But the channel is viewed
Hmm.
as like an LFO or like a channel from audio. You know what I mean? And like a top is a texture, which is a VEC4, but it's really not viewed as like a VEC4 or like it's not viewed as a texture. It's viewed as like,
Hmm.
it's viewed as like pixel data inside of inside of a texture per se. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting way of looking at it. I guess you could. I think people probably do. I think um, yeah, I think people probably do. I think that if you're like, I don't know if you've heard of Paqueta 12 or like, people that on this like way that like, he's taking, he's using the tops to like package information, right? So he's using like that texture to hold a vector for basically in each pixel. So now he has, four numbers that he can use, do whatever he wants with inside of a texture container. So like I think that he is
Right.
looking at it like that, but I would say like most people that are using touch are not really looking at it like that. Like maybe if they're doing a lot of like top to chop, transferring things back and forth, but most people I would say are looking at it as like a more of a flow node based visual scripting environment. But that's the beautiful thing about touch is that it's
Hmm.
so open ended. You can do anything. You could do GLSL, you could do Python, you could do anything. But yeah, I guess I was just kind of interested if you've ever thought about that. I want to go back to the flow states because I feel like that's more interesting just out of interest. Like do you view them as something that's like more than just a moment or like more than just like okay, time has passed? Do you view those moments or those states as something higher? Do you feel like there's something happening when you're in those states that's different than when you're in a normal state?
I think there's stuff that's a lot of stuff that's happening in a normal state that's either not happening or is able to just be like out of my window of perception. That's what it feels like to me, is that I'm able to just have this very full focus and all of, might even like start to forget some of your physical sensations. You're like so tapped into just what's happening in my eyes or in my brain, or come out of a session and realize you've been starving for like an hour. You're like, how did I not know I was that hungry? And it's just all the sensation was just set aside so that you could
Mm,
fully focus on the task at hand or
mm-hmm.
the experience.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, it's almost like do you think it's some sort of function that we have as humans that we can tap into? Like, obviously, I would assume that you partake in psychedelics. Probably not a crazy thing to assume, but
It's a wild accusation.
yeah, yeah, the guy who makes the trippy visuals. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so like, you know, do you feel like I always feel like the flow state is kind of some sort of analog to, you know, a different state of consciousness. It's maybe not like a psychedelic state of consciousness, but it's an altered state, right? Like the same altered state that I would get if I meditated or if I, you know,
Yeah,
did
yeah.
some sort of affirmation or, you know, some sort of practice or something.
Yeah, I think that God, do I even want to try to say his name? The guy that
Terrence
right?
McKenna?
No,
No.
I have
Eckhart
to
Tolle?
now. It's like Dikshant Mahalgi.
Oh,
It's
I don't
like the
know.
closest I'm gonna get to
I
it.
don't know this
The
one. I
guy
don't
that
know. Please
wrote
tell me.
the oh man, can I get the flow? Maybe if I just look for like part of the name. Yeah. Oh, it's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi,
Oh, he wrote
something like
that
that. He
awesome.
wrote Flow, the
Oh, I don't
book,
know that one.
the
Okay, no, I don't know this one.
psychology of optimal experience. And
Oh, I don't
so a
know this
lot of
one.
the conversation around flow is harkening back to this guy. And I think he does even write in here about, you know, he is tying together the experience that these like high level kung fu martial artists have, and high level
Okay,
sports players and meditators.
I
And
never knew it was a book. Interesting.
yeah, he's
Yeah, cool.
where is he? Where is this
Yeah,
name
I'm gonna find
from?
this. It's
Hungary,
Indian. Oh,
Hungarian American.
Hungarian. Okay, okay. Yeah, he's white. Okay, never mind. Interesting. So yeah, so
But yeah,
do,
I think it
do
is
you
all
subscribe?
tapping into just this like this core ability that humans have. And maybe it's even like I maybe it's deeper than humans, you know, maybe it's pre-human and it's all animals.
Hmm.
Or like you might even say that like most animals are just only in this state, I think, is what's going on.
Yeah, interesting. Right, they're just
And we've
super. No, please.
yeah, they only know the moment. And we're kind of one of the only animals, I would guess, that's gotten to this point in how our lives work where we have so much time to get out of the moment that then being in the moment is like this jarring weird experience. Whereas like who knows, maybe like an octopus every like once in a while it has this state of not flow and it's like what
Right. So it's
whoa,
nostalgic all of a sudden.
yeah, I'm like introspecting. This is the first time I've introspected, and then they're just,
That's
you know,
funny.
fish darts by and they're like back in.
Oh shit.
But
Interesting.
yeah, I believe very strongly in like just the power of the human mind and creativity and our own ingenuity. I think a lot of you know, a lot of these experiences or things that people want to feel like so much bigger that they want to ascribe to something outside of themselves. I think
Hmm.
people are often not giving enough credit to what's going on in their own mind.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, like self-love to the degree of like this ineffable experience or this, you know, heightened state of consciousness is outside of me, but it's actually me, right, inside of it in some way. Well, that's kind of like how I view God, you know, obviously a very dirty word, but you know, we're all kind of that same thing, right? It's like a spectrum of, I don't know, like higher states of consciousness or like altered states of reality. It's like it's always there. It's not like, you know, when you're tripping then it turns on. It's just there. You're just when you're tripping, your eyes can see it better or whatever. Your consciousness can see it better. Same for like a spiritual experience or, and that's kind of how I like to think about God in that way. Is like it's not like a thing. It's not like a being. It's just the nature of reality and like the way that we explain it or the way that we tell it, you know? And like the more you kind of separate yourself from that thing, the more you're like, okay, God is this pedestal or is this, you know, person or is this, you know, whatever, this some sort of being instead of saying, okay, I'm actually God. Okay, like the nature around me is God. The reality around me is, I think that's much more powerful than than like some
Yeah, I think
sort
it's
of.
like it's almost like a dangerous thing to externalize.
Mm,
That it's like so to give that to put all that power into something else when
right, right,
it comes from everyone. It is
right.
the entire history of all lived experiences in some like it's um yes I it's kind of like that might be a bit of a Western versus Eastern kind of view of
100%. And modernity of like, what is Jesus? Like, it's a concept, it's an idea, it's a way, right? And then it's like, okay, no, it's actually a person that did this and did that, and I'm not saying there wasn't a person like that. There might have been, but that's not the point. The point is like what the person stewed and I did, and the ideas. It's not about the person. And I bet you he would say the same thing too if he was real, if he was a thing. So it's but that's very classic um, Western modern society, or like, postmodern society, or whatever, pre-modern society, is like that idea of like, yeah, like externalizing things to the extent where now we can go to war, or now we can kill all these people because they don't believe in the externalization. So like, forget about your empathy that's built into you, right? Forget about your very, very core understanding that we're all humans, right? We're all the same DNA, like everybody's the same, really. Forget about that. Externalize and focus on the idea that there's something outside that if you don't subscribe to, then you're not a human anymore, or whatever whatever the rhetoric of that religion is. So it's like, I feel like that's definitely a very modern idea. And if you look at the Eastern cultures, yeah, they had wars, but very different types of wars. And if you look at indigenous cultures, yeah, they had wars, but very, very different types of wars. um, and it's never really about the like idea of what the god is or what the god says. It's much more about like, what is the teaching, or what is the story, or what is the how does nature relate to it in that sense. And I would say that there's probably a big difference between like Eastern culture and like indigenous, because I think Eastern is like it's like indigenous, Eastern, Western, each one has like a little bit of a step above the other, in terms of like, it's just like basis. Indigenous
Mhm.
religions or ideas about God are so simple. It's like good, good, bad, bad, you know, uh, whatever, nature, God, that's like basically the indigenous teachings, you know,
There's, I mean, there's a huge nebula of different kind
for
of
sure,
views within that,
for sure,
but
for sure, for sure, for
that's
sure.
yeah,
But you know what I
the
mean?
kind
It's
of
like
the
even
broader view, yeah.
the broader, even like, even if like there's a spirit inside of a thing, it's a very basic idea. And like Eastern cultures taking that a
Mhm.
little bit further of like, okay, here's all these gods, each one has a different archetype and each one has a different story and is teaching you something else, but they're kind of stories like, yeah, okay, if you're a hardcore Hindu, maybe you believe like these deities, but if you're just like looking at it as like a way to practice, or a way to focus on your existence, or better yourself in the world, it's kind of like abstract, um, like I'm a very big follower of Ganesh. I love Ganesh, and this idea of this, this deity or whatever, demigod who can, provides, who's a provider, who can bring down this like energy of searching for things and like direct you. I love that concept as an idea. And like, if I'm in a praying mood, sometimes I'll think about this kind of deity. But does it? I don't think that there's actually, you know, like a half elephant guy roaming around.
Yeah.
Maybe there was. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there was,
Unfortunately,
but
yeah.
but I think it's less about that thing and more about the concept. Whereas like Abrahamic religions, or Western religions, are really focused on like, this book is real and everything in the book is real, and yeah, there's different sects and different like spectrums, but it basically comes down to, this book was written by the thing, and the thing is So I don't know what the point of this specific point of the segment here is, but I've
It's there, uh, and it is so diverse in all of these different areas, and there are, I'm glad there are people that are kind of starting to tie back, some Western influences that are looking to pull together these different threads of ideas and like find the stuff that's actually helpful to people. 'Cause that's
yeah,
the to me,
totally.
I don't know eh, if what of this is true or what history actually happened. Like you said, so much of it has been kind of burned or rewritten. So it's, who knows if there was a dude like named Jesus, or what he looked like, probably brown if he existed. But
Definitely.
um, it's at the end of the day, I think the most important, like, religion is like sort of a self-organizing tool that
Mm,
society comes up with, and like
mm,
throughout these different times in history, like one of the main things it does is to bind people together with
mm,
like some kind of shared vision and some shared
mm.
ethics and like frameworks to talk about these things. And
Yeah.
that's like, however much bad religion has done for the world, that's like a huge,
Huge
it's
net
gotten
positive.
society to where it is today,
Totally.
yeah, by
Totally. Totally.
kind of giving threads to bind us together.
Mm.
There's this one faith that I thought I liked for a bit, that until I read a little more into it, there's maybe some shaky grounds. But this the Baha'i faith,
Yeah,
have you heard of them?
of course.
Where they have that super cool temple, I think was my introduction to them.
Well, they have them all over the world. They have like
Hmm.
gardens and temples. They're very interesting.
Yeah, one core idea that they had that I find interesting at the very least is, um, and I might be getting it slightly wrong, but they think that kind of all of these major, what do you call it, the figures of all the,
Yeah,
like Muhammad, Jesus, that
yeah.
all these,
Abraham. Yeah, they're all the same
the
person.
prophets,
Yeah,
that they're all sent through the same kind of like whatever God,
yeah.
and that they are new, brought to reinterpret the teachings in a way that's like relevant to the
Relevant to
people
the
at the
time. Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that it slowly guides them towards this end goal.
Totally.
And then they end up with that kind of, they end up with all these cool, the pillars that have it looks like a coexist, bumper sticker kind of, where they have all the different
Yeah.
symbols
Baha'i is
trying to
very
like
cool.
infuse them into one thing.
You know, who's a big Baha'i guy? Ryan Johnson, the guy from The Office.
Oh,
He's a yeah, yeah.
good.
Dwight, I think, from The Office. Ryan Johnson. He's a big Baha'i guy. He has a podcast actually, very interesting, where he talks a little bit about that. Yeah, I think Baha'i is probably pretty harmless. You know, they're not a cult. They're not really a organized religion. It's more of like community or society. I I would
Hmm.
imagine there's probably like some money situation there that's maybe a little bit sketchy or laundry ish, but I mean, what
I
international
think one of the
organization
things I
isn't?
came across was like, maybe some views on the women's place might have
Mm,
been a little
a little
outdated,
iffy. Mm.
to put it kindly. But this is like, I don't want to speak too strongly one
Oh,
way or
now I
another
love
about
the
something that I
religion.
don't feel
No,
like
I'm
I know
joking.
that strong.
No, I'm
Yeah.
joking.
Like, oh, maybe
Trad
this is for
wife,
me.
a
Yeah.
Baha'i wife.
Yeah. I'm
Oh
just in
man.
it for the
Well,
cool pillars and the
yeah,
Lotus Temple.
exactly. I'm in it for the gardens. Well, Kyle, dude, it was so nice to talk to you. I always get so bummed that we always get into such awesome conversations at the end and then have to cut it short. But
Yeah.
it just gives us a chance to bring you on again at some point. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to share with us before we get out of here?
No, just check out my website, uft.com. Check out
Oof.
Synesthesia. Check out the Synesthesia marketplace. I just want to plug every marketplace artist on Synesthesia.
Go
They're
for it.
all There's so many cool people involved there. That's why I had to play that Winnie the Pooh gif. That's the one bit of knowledge I want everyone to get out of this, is that Winnie the Pooh gif that's on every Instagram post is by Leon, and he's like the sickest GLSL artist. And we have a couple scenes from him in the Synesthesia marketplace.
Oh yeah. Shout out Leon. Yeah,
Shout
thank
out
you again,
Leon.
Kyle. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, thanks again for showing us the world of synesthesia and the world of GLSL. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for chatting. It's been fun.
Wow, what an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Mantis Smash for the intro and outro music. Thank you to Sophie Holder for the amazing internship helping us with all the episodes. And thank you to the guest for coming on and spending time with us. See you next week.